A young man examines a piece of S-rank platinum ore, recognizing its value for crafting fine armor and swords, surrounded by crates filled with various ores. He notes the ranks of the remaining pieces, determined to finish appraising them all. Suddenly, a stern aristocrat arrives with guards, demanding the appraisal of another 1,000 ores by tomorrow due to the impending war with the Grouse Empire. Emphasizing the urgent need for weapons, the young man is startled but urged to keep working despite his exhaustion and the toll on his body. Struggling with fatigue, he reflects on his resolve to keep working to avoid going hungry and unpaid again. Though his body is at its limit, as he carries a heavy crate, a shadowy figure appears in the warehouse, telling him he should stop before warning that continued use of magic will lead to death. The young man is startled by the cloaked stranger's sudden appearance and warning. Unable to see the figure's face clearly, he decides to appraise him instead. The mysterious visitor reveals he has already seen the young man's ability and cautions him about the dangers of overusing magic. The cloaked figure invites the young man to join the Empire, prompting him to recoil in shock, recognizing it as the enemy nation. Despite the pain in his leg, he wonders why someone from the enemy would be here and who the stranger might be. Outside, a guard slumps asleep, oblivious to the intrusion, while the young man accidentally crashes into a door. Stunned, he realizes the visitor is a military officer from the Empire. The stranger advises caution in using magic, noting the drunken soldiers outside make shouting pointless. The young man is amazed the officer noticed his appraisal magic, and the visitor admits curiosity about him, explaining his habit of appraising everything. The cloaked man reveals he has thoroughly investigated the young man and his interest has only grown. Impressed that he can even appraise people, he offers a chance for a normal life and the possibility of becoming a noble in their country. Emphasizing it's the young man's choice and that he's not there to sweet-talk him, the young man questions the sincerity of the recruitment attempt, doubting such a convenient story. The visitor explains their nation values strength and skill over birth and status, promising the young man more recognition for handling his heavy workload. He assures that in their country, the young man would be truly valued. The youth considers the offer, acknowledging it sounds persuasive while the cloaked figure smiles knowingly. The cloaked figure tosses a small, bouncing orb toward the young man, calling it a gift and urging him to use it as a basis for judgment. The orb lands with a sharp crack, startling the youth, who recognizes the voice as Anne-Marise's. Outside, drunken soldiers loudly toast their lord's glory, oblivious to the tense exchange inside. The young man watches a recorded scene of two high nobles laughing over drinks, discussing how Prophet soared ever since the commoner was made an appraiser. They cynically agree to see how long he lasts, admitting they only followed their lord's orders. The youth clenches his teeth, sweat and dirt covering his face, questioning if he should keep working under such scum while risking his life. Flashbacks reveal how commoner children with dead parents live on the streets, and how he was lured with food and money before being forced into labor. Memories of torture and survival thanks to his appraisal skills flood his mind as he contemplates the cloaked man's offer to join the Empire. For the first time, he faces a real choice, and with determination, he resolves to accept the chance if it means a better life. Under the moonlit sky at the south gate, the young man searches anxiously, wondering if appraisal magic might help him find someone faster. Suddenly, he spots a figure cloaked in darkness perched high in a tree. The cloaked man descends, greeting the youth and apologizing for the wait, while the young man assures him he arrived right on time. The cloaked figure introduces himself as Ars Bellart. Expressing relief that the young man came, they begin walking through the forest, discussing how appraisal magic can even locate people. Ars suggests leaving the city behind, inviting the youth to talk as they go deeper into the woods. A magical appraisal reveals Ars Bellart's details. A 31-year-old imperial officer with perfect infiltration skills and strong swordsmanship, but his greatest talent lies in archery. The young man contemplates focusing on archery instead of swordplay, but Ars encourages him, saying effort matters more than talent and that he is fine as he is. Ars smiles knowingly as he asks if the young man chose appraisal magic, explaining it simply guides beginners toward easier paths. He admits he cannot appraise himself but was born with the talent. They reach a midpoint where Ars hands over a letter of introduction, instructing the youth to head to the address once he arrives, promising guidance from there. A horse-drawn cart waits nearby as the young man acknowledges the plan. The young man expresses deep gratitude for being accepted despite only having appraisal magic, admitting he holds mostly bitter memories of the kingdom but cherishes one good memory at the end. Standing beneath the moonlit sky, he looks toward the distant city with a mix of hope and reflection. A cloaked figure extends a hand, acknowledging the youth's true ability was hindered only by his harsh environment. The young man agrees, and they shake hands firmly. The cloaked man contemplates the boy's potential, believing he could stand by Her Majesty's side and holds high hopes for him. Under the full moon, The two continue their conversation as the cloaked figure praises the young man's abilities, explaining his past environment was the real obstacle. The youth confirms this, and the cloaked man's thoughts linger on the boy's future role. The scene shifts to a shadowy cave entrance where the cloaked figure disappears into darkness, his expression resolute and hopeful. 10 days later, the young man awakens abruptly in a covered wagon, startled by the call to work. A companion points out the imperial capital is now in sight, prompting the youth to remember his defection to the empire. He sits up, still processing the reality of his new path. The sprawling, majestic imperial capital of Calisome rises grandly against the sky, its towering spires and fortified walls dominating the landscape. The vast city marks the beginning of the young man's new chapter within the Grouse Empire. The young man arrives at the imposing gates of an imperial military base, its towering walls and fortified entrance standing firm under a clear sky. He approaches a guard, presenting a letter of introduction and mentioning Major Bellart's name, hoping to gain entry. The youth steps into a bustling city street, surrounded by medieval-style buildings and townsfolk going about their day, the grand silhouette of a vast castle looming in the distance. He looks up in awe, realizing this is the place Major Bellart had spoken of. Inside the military base, the young man faces suspicion as a stern soldier questions the validity of his referral, angrily dismissing the letter and accusing him of lying. The youth nervously insists the referral is genuine, clutching the letter tightly. Just as tension rises, a figure emerges from a carriage, commanding attention with a sharp salute and authoritative presence. The young man calls out respectfully to Major Rudolph, signaling a new encounter that promises a turning point in his uncertain journey. The young man nervously confirms he is Aruto as the light-haired major addresses him with a confident smile, introducing himself as Rudolph and acknowledging a report from Major Bellart. He dismisses a soldier, instructing him to return to his duties, then offers to personally show Aruto around the base, who eagerly agrees. Walking through the base corridors, Rudolph compliments Aruto on his uniform and reviews Major Bellart's introduction letter, which outlines training from zero, assigning subordinates, and extensive daily use of appraisal magic. Aruto modestly downplays his role as just an appraiser, while Rudolph finds his unique ability intriguing. Rudolph explains that Aruto will enlist as a candidate officer and must take on his first mission, selecting and training a child from the Protective Facilities Senior Group using appraisal magic to strengthen their forces. Aruto reacts with surprise at joining the army, while Rudolph apologizes for the sudden task and encourages him to use his skills to educate his subordinate. The major details the upcoming entrance exam for the military academy in a month and stresses Aruto's responsibility to ensure his trainee passes. Aruto asks if he can appraise people to assess their potential, and Rudolph confirms. Leaving the choice to Aruto, the young man resolves to start with 7 candidates, determined to see if they measure up to others. The young man concentrates deeply, weaving intricate magical circles in the air as he activates his appraisal magic, a faint smile crossing his face while the glowing runes shimmer around his hands. Observing the results, the light-haired major admires the young man's intense focus, eager to see the outcome as profiles of 7 candidates appear, each displaying their age and skill rankings, all showing promising potential. The young man narrows his eyes on one candidate in particular, a red-haired girl named Sarah with an exceptional S rank in swordsmanship, but he decides against choosing her, reasoning that training someone already brilliant wouldn't reflect his own growth. Meanwhile, Sarah struggles to keep up during training, panting and apologizing as a stern instructor warns her she risks repeating the year, while 2 other trainees mock her slowness and question her place among them. The young man asks the major if raising someone involves more than just physical ability, to which the major confirms it does. He then inquires if the young man has already chosen a candidate, and the young man replies affirmatively with a smile. Nearby, a girl named Lily collapses, prompting concern from another trainee. The trainees are ordered to line up, whispering among themselves about the young man's candidate officer badge and his seemingly weak appearance. The young man feels the weight of their stares, while a female trainee encourages him to walk with more confidence, gently tapping his shoulder. Interrupting the training, the young man announces that one of the trainees will be selected as his assistant. The group reacts with surprise and excitement, some convinced it will be Sarah, the skilled swordswoman. The young man extends his hand, signaling the start of the selection, and the major encourages him to proceed. The major formally announces candidate Lily as the chosen assistant, catching her off guard. The other trainees look on with mixed reactions, while Lily processes the unexpected decision. The girl named Lily is shocked and confused by the announcement, unable to believe she was chosen as the assistant. The training instructor calls the session to a close, ordering all other candidates to continue their drills while Lily is excused. The trainees react with surprise and murmurs, some questioning the choice as they prepare for more sprints. A serious young woman clenches her fist, refusing to accept Lily's selection despite her apparent failure. She questions the decision, worried about the risks of choosing someone so weak, but is firmly told that this is an order with no room for objections. The young man steps forward to explain his reasoning. Addressing the doubts directly, he insists that Lily is not a failure but simply does not fit the current environment. Emphasizing that she has untapped potential, Lily listens, her eyes wide with a mix of surprise and hope. The serious woman remains skeptical, questioning what environment could make such a difference. The young man acknowledges her doubt but resolves to prove his judgment. Meanwhile, the light-haired major announces a mock battle between Lily and the doubting woman, Marlia, scheduled for 1 week later, promising to allow an appeal based on the outcome and inviting any objections. The young man encourages the two girls standing before him, one expressing confidence she will win the upcoming challenge while the other remains silent, her expression unreadable. He looks on with anticipation, telling one of them he's counting on her as the bell tower chimes in the background. The young man introduces himself to the girl named Lily, who greets him warmly and agrees to be called by her nickname. He reflects on how different his current life is compared to his time in the kingdom. While a stern voice angrily calls out to hurry up, labeling him scum, he then asks if he can appraise people, surprising Lily as he explains his role as an appraiser and requests to appraise her in detail. The young man praises Lily as an impressive executive candidate, prompting her to modestly acknowledge the compliment. He asks for her permission to proceed, which she grants, and then focuses his magic more narrowly and intensely than before, preparing to assess her potential with greater precision. With a magical circle glowing, the young man sees a detailed profile of Lily appear, displaying her age, life status, magic power, and various stats including stamina, strength, defense, evasion, magic, spell, agility, luck, skills, and aptitudes, revealing her true capabilities as he studies her closely. The young man studies Lily's appraisal results, noting her low physical stats but recognizing her exceptional support magic skill. He contemplates how her training focused on strength and combat must have been difficult for her. Lily appears surprised and hopeful as he considers showing her the results. He reassures her that she has magical talent and can become strong if she tries, reminding her that the environment had been a barrier before. She listens intently, her expression a mix of disbelief and determination. He asks about a library or information source to begin practicing magic, and she agrees to help. They enter a vast classroom filled with towering shelves of books, converted from an emergency food storage. The young man marvels at the variety of books, including guides on swordsmanship, cooking, and local specialties, while Lily rushes ahead excitedly. The young man reflects on the meritocratic nature of their world as training continues outside. Inside, Lily struggles to carry a heavy crate of books, and he resolves to help her develop her talent not just for himself, but for her sake as well, clutching a book tightly with determination. The young man insists he can find the book himself, but the girl nervously offers to help since Lord Alto just arrived. He focuses his magic gently and widely, imagining a soft touch as he searches the towering shelves. He points out a box containing an introductory book, which catches their attention among the many volumes. The girl excitedly holds up the introductory book, amazed that appraisal magic can locate items. They examine the book's contents, which describe spells for increasing muscle strength, improving vision, and eliminating negative thoughts, as well as spells that reduce strength and speed or obstruct chanting. The young man asks if there is any magic she wants to try, prompting her to consider her options. Understanding her concern about being left behind in the marathon, he suggests focusing on power and speed enhancement. She agrees, showing the relevant pages in the book. Later, she concentrates deeply, preparing to activate the magic by narrowing and spreading her power throughout her body as instructed. The girl closes her eyes and clasps her hands, surrounded by a soft glow as she channels the magic, fully immersed in the moment of activation. The young woman asks how the appraisal went, and the young man confirms it was a success, explaining that mastering various support spells will be valuable in mock battles and future missions. He gestures toward a box, suggesting they try the magic they found earlier. She braces herself and prepares to activate the spell. As he slides the box forward with magic, she exclaims in surprise at its movement. Smiling brightly, they share a moment of joy, with the young man crediting her hard work, and she humbly attributes it to Lord Alto's help. The young man cautions her that she used more than half her magic power just now, but she insists she will try harder. He notes that her magic power is increasing, though it recovers slowly, making continuous use difficult. They are interrupted by someone bringing appraisal results, and he asks where she has been searching all this time. He explains that only he can see the appraisal results and focuses on the image of touching her magic power rather than her directly. The results show a power-up effect increasing her strength stat, with an aptitude correction that raises it further, marking it as an S-rank enhancement. Lily is called over as training ends, being told to come to Major Rudolph's room. while the young man prepares to continue reading the book, determined to raise his magic level and enhance the effects needed to defeat training candidate Maruria. He reflects that, after repetitive practice, his magic power limit increased, but the effects of support magic do not overlap. In a stately room, a woman asks Mr. Sanzai for his opinion on Alto, the executive candidate, who is described as having an abnormal amount of magic power. She questions who he really is, while a man reveals that Alto used appraisal magic more than 800 times a day, leaving the woman in disbelief as he slides a document across the desk. The appraisal results of the training candidates are presented, showing their names and specialties, with confirmation that appraisal magic can be used on people but not on moving objects. The young man smiles confidently, challenging the common sense of appraisal magic and inviting curiosity about what such a person will do, while another watches with a mix of surprise and concern. In a quiet room, a young man and a woman with long hair sit across from each other, discussing the appraisal of magic and the young man's unique abilities. He admits he is likely unaware of his own uniqueness, and she agrees, noting his unfamiliarity with social conventions. He explains that whether to hide or reveal his powers publicly will require his consent. The young man then requests the woman to become his direct subordinate to help him understand and realize the nature of his powers. She listens intently, then eagerly accepts the role, expressing how honored she is to be chosen. As they continue their conversation, the young man offers her a key, symbolizing trust and responsibility, and asks her to be a source of support for him. Blushing, she humbly accepts the mission, showing her determination to rise to the challenge. Back in a training room, the young man announces the next exercise. Using 2 spells simultaneously, the young woman, surprised but ready, prepares to activate both power and speed boost spells at once, focusing intently as magical circles glow brightly before her. The young man excitedly confirms that her strength and speed have increased. Though she admits the process is tiring, he reflects on how his maximum mana pool is steadily growing. But the magic's maximum level remains unchanged, prompting him to consider trying a new technique he read about. He suggests a different kind of training to the young woman, showing her a page from a book that explains breaking limits by defeating monsters. She asks if there is a nearby place to hunt monsters, and he agrees they should find one. The young woman contemplates the need for Major Rudolph's permission to enter the forest where monsters dwell, managed by the army. They quickly agree to seek approval and prepare to head out, their excitement evident as they plan their next steps. Walking through a bustling town, they discuss how much the locals trust the young man, who has been granted access to the army's forest and permission to hire adventurers as porters. He also receives authorization to recruit anyone who catches his eye, solidifying the young woman's role as his subordinate as they arrive at their destination. The young woman points out the nearest guild to the military base as they walk together through the bustling town. Inside the guild, a tired woman complains about waiting all day while another person nearby laments the poor pay. From a balcony, a woman watches the pair below, surprised to see a soldier among the visitors. The young man asks at the guild's counter for someone to carry their luggage, while nearby adventurers chat excitedly about returning from an A-rank quest, though the workers only have weeding tasks available. The young man reflects on the guild's merit-based system, where members are ranked by skill and achievements. He and the young woman stand before a large notice board, learning that their destination is the army's forest, prompting a moment of realization. Suddenly, a woman rushes toward the young man, startling him. She falls dramatically in front of him, revealing a sign that reads she is looking for work, signed by an adventurer named Firen, causing him to suspect her intentions are suspicious. A determined gaze focuses as a magical appraisal circle glows around a raised hand, signaling the command to appraise. A nervous woman wearing glasses suddenly falls to the floor, startled by the presence of a tall woman in heels standing before her. The tall woman calls out the fallen one by name, her expression serious and commanding. The woman with glasses pleads desperately, begging the taller woman, named Rubchan, to listen as she faces a stern reprimand for repeatedly soliciting clients directly, a rule she has broken 8 times. Nearby, 2 men at a table comment on the situation, warning lower-class adventurers to leave and expressing their disdain for ending up like her. The fallen woman screams in despair as she is dragged away by her collar, while the men reflect somberly on how easily their fate could be the same. A frantic cry for help echoes as the fallen woman calls out to a man named Arudo, begging him to save her from her predicament. The man and a young woman stand silently, the man clenching his fist tightly in thought. Suddenly, he decisively declares that he chooses a particular person, his voice firm and resolute. The woman with glasses and the tall woman both look up in surprise at his unexpected decision. The scene shifts to the exterior of a lively establishment named Big Hamburg, its sign prominently displayed. Inside, the tension lingers as the tall woman and the woman with glasses exchange glances, the latter still processing the surprising choice made moments before. The young man reveals he appraised the woman who intrigued him, discovering her potential as S-rank, matching his own in archery, which is why he chose her. She joyfully exclaims how delicious the hamburger steak is. He asks if she would consider becoming his subordinate, and she listens intently as the conversation continues. The woman expresses gratitude for the meal, amazed it's the first time she's eaten something like this. While the young woman gently invites her to become the young man's subordinate, he praises her archery talent and asks if she was aware of it, causing surprise and confusion. She questions how he could know, and he explains his former job was an appraiser. The woman admits she's never even touched a bow and lacks weapons or money, prompting the young man to suggest a more detailed appraisal. She nervously prepares herself, placing her hands on the table as he readies to appraise her further. The young woman excitedly announces a special limited-time offer. If she becomes his subordinate, her room and board will be provided free, including a weapon. The woman's glasses sparkle as she processes the offer, surprised but intrigued. The young man admits he feels a bit lonely and that his acknowledgement of her potential is the reason for this generous offer, which even includes free rice. The woman with glasses blushes deeply as the young woman gently asks if she would become their subordinate. Her eyes filled with sincere hope, the two clasp hands firmly, united in their resolve to support Master Arudo together, their faces bright with determination and gratitude. The scene shifts to a view of the bustling shop's interior, where the young woman enthusiastically agrees to buy a weapon, her excitement mirrored by the woman with glasses. The trio steps out of the shop, each carrying their newly acquired weapons, their spirits lifted by the successful purchase. The woman with glasses holds a bow confidently, while the young woman grips a staff, and the young man leads with a smile, encouraging them to train a little before heading to the forest. Their camaraderie is evident as they walk side by side, ready to face the challenges ahead. A soldier urgently points toward the returning figure of Major Lulubelle, announcing her arrival with surprise and recognition. Another soldier turns to look, curious about the commotion. The final panel reveals a grizzled man with a beard and a sly smile, his eyes gleaming with interest as he asks which one is Rudolph's favorite, hinting at deeper intrigue behind the scene. The young man sits at a desk, surrounded by floating magical emblems, as he writes in a large book with a calm and focused expression, signaling the start of a new chapter. The trio, consisting of the woman with glasses, the young man, and the young woman, stand together facing a group of officers, who comment on their appearance and point out other cadets, noting the contrast between them and the less capable adventurers nearby. A towering, stern officer slams his fist down, scolding the group harshly for their weakness and for belittling others to appear stronger, while the young man introduces himself to the grizzled officer who eyes him critically, recognizing him as Rudolph's favorite. The imposing officer grabs the young man by the collar, acknowledging Rudolph's fondness for him and warning that the military is no place for the weak, his voice booming with authority as the young woman clings to the young man, emphasizing the seriousness of their situation. The woman with glasses, the young woman, and the young man all tense up, their expressions serious as the imposing officer's harsh words hang in the air. The view shifts to a sprawling military complex, emphasizing the weight of his declaration that the military belongs to the strong and offers no refuge for the weak. The young man contemplates this, realizing the harsh reality that the strong fight while the weak must avoid danger, though he senses the officer might still be open to reason. Approaching the towering figure, the young man respectfully asks Major Rubel a question, prompting the grizzled officer to invite him to speak. He inquires whether the military truly has no need for those who nurture the future strong, to which the major replies that educators are indeed necessary. The young man then asks if educators themselves must be strong, seeking clarity on the expectations placed on those who guide others. The major folds his arms confidently, asserting that it is common for disciples to surpass their masters, and challenges the young man by asking if he considers himself a first-rate educator. The young man calmly denies this but affirms his belief in his ability to discern people's potential. Nearby, 3 gatekeepers listen intently, their expressions a mix of surprise and curiosity, as the young man points out that certain girls possess far greater potential than the gatekeepers themselves. Smiling, the young man proposes that the girls team up with the 3 gatekeepers, a suggestion met with thoughtful consideration by the major. He acknowledges the upcoming academy entrance exam will include a duel and agrees to the arrangement. Intrigued by the young man's argument, the major bursts into hearty laughter, declaring the situation exciting and urging the youngsters to give their all, while the young man confidently predicts passing the exam will be guaranteed if they face those 3 opponents. The group walks away, leaving a lone soldier standing silently, holding a spear, while a jovial man invites the others to join him for drinks. The soldier's uniform shows signs of wear, and his expression hardens with resolve. Nearby, the the woman with glasses and the young woman express regret for their inability to contribute, feeling useless despite their efforts. The young man reassures them, explaining that Major Rubel's overwhelming presence left no room for action. The young woman reflects on her shock at seeing the Major in person. Suddenly, the young man notices a rise in the young girl's level, prompting concern and curiosity as they observe her improved stats. Entering a cozy room, the woman with glasses beams with excitement, asking if she can truly live there, to which the young man and the young woman warmly affirm. The woman with glasses tearfully celebrates the end of their camping life, while the young man and the young woman exchange confused looks about the change in their living situation. The young man asks the young woman to show him the classroom again. Admitting his limited knowledge about bows, she agrees, but before they proceed, she looks serious and tells him there is something important she needs to share. The young woman with horns sits across from the young man and the woman with glasses at a table, her expression serious as the young man asks what important matter she wishes to discuss. She reveals her concern is about his appraisal magic. Addressing him respectfully, the scene shifts to a depiction of various appraisers examining treasures and artifacts, explaining that the city has many appraisers just as he once was in his previous life. The young man's eyes widen in shock as she explains that none of these appraisers can evaluate people, only objects, assigning names, prices, and ranks to items but not living beings. She emphasizes that his appraisal ability is at a military secret level, far beyond normal standards. The young man quickly protests, recalling his past as an appraiser and insisting that any appraiser can do what he does, feeling embarrassed to be proud of such a skill. A flashback shows a stern older man scolding him harshly, demanding if he understands the gravity of appraisal, insisting that even a normal person can appraise items, implying his skill is nothing special. Returning to the present, the young woman asks what results he received back then, prompting him to recall it was over 10 years ago. She suggests that perhaps his ability was suppressed to keep his results hidden, noting that if his appraisal had been strong, he would surely remember. The three sit quietly, contemplating the possibility that his true potential was never fully revealed. The woman with glasses calmly explains that her aptitude was for the bow and admits this is the first time she's heard of someone able to appraise people. She pours a cup of coffee as she reflects on this new understanding. The young woman with horns apologizes for steering the conversation away from the young man's ability, explaining that uncertainty about Firen's participation caused the distraction. The woman with glasses reassures her, saying she didn't notice anything wrong. The young man states that being able to appraise human aptitudes and abilities is unusual, prompting the horned woman to correct him, saying it is not unusual but rather a unique ability belonging only to him. She looks serious as she asks him a question, while a close-up shows her reflection in his eye. The horned woman asks if he intends to announce his unique ability publicly, warning that doing so could elevate him to the rank of major or even higher. The young man clarifies by asking if she means letting the world know he can appraise people, to which she confirms. The woman with glasses reacts with surprise, connecting the ability to the huge man they saw earlier, calling it amazing. The young man firmly states he will not announce it but will keep it a secret, thanking her for sharing the information. The young woman with horns smiles warmly, admitting she expected the young man to respond as he did. The woman with glasses reacts with surprise, urging him to reconsider, warning that he could rise in rank immediately. The horned woman explains that revealing his appraisal ability publicly carries risks, as it could create many enemies. The young man looks uncertain, while the woman with glasses appears thoughtful, caught off guard by the implications. The young man recalls what came to mind when he heard about going public. A life of constant appraisals, exhaustion from quotas, and never wanting to live that way again. The horned woman looks troubled, realizing he doesn't fully grasp the gravity of the situation. He resolves to be careful not to get noticed when appraising people, trying to downplay the seriousness. The three gather around a table, agreeing to begin training and search for a book on archery, with the young woman and the woman with glasses offering to help. Suddenly, a composed young woman in a military-style uniform approaches, politely excusing herself to deliver a message. Standing confidently, the young woman announces that before the group departs for the military forest, the officer cadet must visit Major Rudolph's room alone in 2 hours. The three exchange concerned looks, wondering if the message concerns the recent incident at the gate or something more personal. Outside near several archery targets, the young woman struggles intensely to draw her bow, her face strained with effort as the string refuses to budge. The young man watches from a nearby bench, surprised by her difficulty, while she collapses to her hands and knees in frustration. He then notices something in a book, realizing he has found the key to her problem. The woman with glasses apologizes quietly to the young man, explaining that leveling up can occur even outside of formal training. She reflects on how Lily's recent growth was triggered by her exchange with the strong man, Major Rubel, describing it as a reward for repelling a formidable enemy. The young man encourages her to try a little longer, while she admits she struggles to handle the bow properly. He asks her to cast a power-up spell on Firen, and she agrees, determined to improve. The young woman reassures her companion confidently, promising to handle the situation herself. Her expression shifts to one of calm focus as she activates the power-up spell, magical energy beginning to shimmer around her. The young man prompts her to try drawing the bow again, and she hesitantly complies, to her astonishment. The bowstring moves smoothly this time, and she beams with surprise and delight, marveling at her sudden increase in strength. A stat display confirms her strength has risen significantly, marking a clear improvement from moments before. The young man praises Lily for her newfound invincibility, crediting her support magic, while she shyly deflects the compliment and credits him. He encourages the woman with glasses to cast the spell on Firen again if she struggles with the bow. Both women nod in agreement, ready to continue training. Inside an elegant room, a young officer apologizes for the sudden summons and asks the young man to pick up a small bundle of water magic herbs before heading to the military forest. The young man accepts the task obediently, considering the herbs' rank and price. The officer explains the recent forest fire that depleted the army's stock of magic herbs, urging the young man to collect any he finds as supply has not caught up despite requests to guilds. He clarifies this is not an assignment but a purchase, surprising the young man. Grateful for the opportunity, the young man thanks the officer, who praises his performance and entrusts him with condition-based pricing decisions. The young man promises to do his best, while the officer quietly counts on him before returning to his paperwork. The young man realizes the summons isn't about the gate incident as he explains meeting Major Rubel earlier. Assuming that was the reason, the other officer reveals he hasn't seen Rubel in days and hands over an official appointment order. Explaining he planned to introduce it eventually, the young man examines the document, questioning if it's truly an appointment order. The officer formally announces Firen as the young man's subordinate. His eyes narrow in shock as he studies the appointment order, noting the ink is dried cleanly on hard-to-obtain parchment with official military approval seals. He doubts such a complex document could be prepared in just 2 hours. The young man contemplates that the military must have known they would bring Firen back before returning to the army. The officer reminds him that Rubel might snatch him away, explaining it's natural given the circumstances. The young man questions if he's moving too fast, while the officer expresses anticipation for the upcoming trial match with the corporals. Walking down a long hallway, the young man reflects on the possibility of factions trying to prevent his removal. Feeling the hassle of promotion and considering it wise not to announce anything, he acknowledges his origin from an enemy nation complicates matters. The final thought reveals that unlike Ameliza, those watching him are dangerous in a different way, emphasizing the feeling of being watched. An arrow strikes the target with a sharp impact as the young man watches intently. Firen celebrates joyfully, raising her arms in triumph while the young woman with long hair praises her impressive bullseye. The young man confidently declares that being watched is nothing new and welcomes any surveillance with a determined smile. The next day, the trio stands at the edge of the military forest, preparing for their exploration. The young man sets the rules, stating they will retreat immediately if 3 or more enemies approach or if the situation becomes too dangerous. Both women agree enthusiastically, ready to follow his lead. The group begins their journey, with the young man instructing them to thin out their mana and spread it wider within a 100-meter radius. They move forward cautiously, the young woman with glasses leading with her staff while the other carries a spear, all focused on the task ahead. A protective magical dome envelopes the trio, shimmering around them as they stand in the forest. Small animals like rabbits and an owl observe quietly nearby, while the dome extends over the vast forest landscape, shielding them as they prepare to explore the dangerous terrain. The young man surveys the forest, surrounded by numerous magical markers pinging around the trees, indicating detected presences. He confirms there are no strong monsters nearby, prompting the 2 women beside him to ask what's wrong with concern. He explains he's just scouting, pointing out the closest monster's location on his magical display, while the woman with glasses notes water magic herbs nearby but warns of 2 monsters close to them. The plan is to defeat the nearest monster first, then gather the herb, and if time allows, take out the other 2 before returning. The young man reveals he used appraisal magic to detect monsters just as he did when searching for a bow book, surprising the woman with glasses who realizes he treats books and monsters similarly. She asks if he can really tell where monsters are, and he confirms quickly locating one in a box nearby, impressing the others with his speed. The woman with glasses reflects on how absurd his ability is, noting it's no wonder the magic is considered military secret level. She questions the oddity of appraising monsters they don't even know exist, while the other woman remarks that the young man doesn't follow common sense and they'll have to get used to it. She also sympathizes with the shy girl, implying she's been struggling too. The young woman with short light hair and glasses asks the blonde girl to cast a power-up spell on Firen, who admits she's never used her staff to cast magic before but is eager to try. The group stands in a clearing, framed by trees, As the bird perched above watches closely, the blonde girl concentrates, commanding the power-up, gripping her staff tightly as magical energy begins to activate. Firen raises her staff with determination, shouting the activation command, while the young man watches intently, surrounded by swirling magical runes that shimmer in the air. She, the young man, and the blonde girl discuss the results. The spell worked but unexpectedly boosted the blonde girl's strength as well. The woman with glasses questions if the spell was cast on 2 people, and the young man wonders if the effect applies to everyone through the staff, concluding it likely only benefits allies. They decide to investigate the staff techniques book for more clues when they return. The trio walks cautiously through the forest, when suddenly the blonde girl senses danger and raises her hand in alarm. The young man's hand glows with magical symbols as he detects a nearby monster, alerting the group to the imminent threat. The young man urgently signals for silence, holding a finger to his lips as the 2 women beside him ready their weapons. The blonde girl calls out his name quietly, concern evident in her eyes. Hidden behind thick bushes, the trio peers cautiously at the forest clearing ahead. The young man spots the target first, whispering that he has found it. The woman with glasses and the blonde girl both focus intently, confirming the presence of the monster lying ahead on the forest floor. A large, sluggish slime labeled as rank F oozes in a forest clearing while the trio hides behind bushes nearby. The young man urges the group to speak quietly so the slime remains unaware. He leans close to the blonde girl, whispering a plan. While the woman with glasses watches attentively, the blonde girl suddenly whispers to the young man, asking for a moment alone. The young man instructs the blonde girl to touch the crystal embedded in his staff, demonstrating how to hold it properly. She grips the staff carefully as the woman with glasses encourages the blonde girl to try as well. The young man guides their hands, ensuring they hold the staff correctly, while the blonde girl closes her eyes, focusing deeply. Both the woman with glasses and the young man look surprised as they realize they can hear the blonde girl's voice inside their minds. She explains that when the young man touched the staff earlier, she felt as if she could hear his inner voice. The woman with glasses marvels at this ability, calling it amazing, while the young man wonders since when the blonde girl has had such a power. The woman with glasses contemplates the military-level secrecy of this communication ability, noting its usefulness in infiltration or negotiations. The blonde girl admits she is on the team side and nervously agrees to do her best despite the fear. The young man asks if they can defeat the slime, and the blonde girl responds with determination. The group then takes their positions in the bushes, with the young man promising to keep watch, the blonde girl ready to act, and the woman with glasses prepared to support. The blonde girl grips her staff tightly, eyes narrowing as she faces the sluggish slime in the clearing. Preparing herself for their first battle, with a determined shout, she commands the others to fall down, readying to strike. She swings her staff with force, smashing it into the ground near the slime, while the young man dashes forward, urgency in his expression as he assesses the distance. Realizing their attack might barely be enough, the blonde girl watches anxiously, sweat forming on her face. The young man hurls a chunk of the slime with precision, his gaze sharp as he focuses on the target. The slime splashes through the air, and the blonde girl stands beside him, poised and ready to continue the fight. The woman with glasses draws her bow, aiming carefully at the advancing slime. The creature oozes forward slowly, but the young man calls out urgently to the blonde girl, who suddenly blushes, caught off guard by his voice. The blonde girl lunges forward, forcefully smashing a chunk of the slime as she shouts a fierce attack command. She pants heavily, catching her breath after the strike. The young man reassures her softly, telling her she can now relax as they stand side by side, the slime's defeated form resting on the ground nearby. The young man praises the woman with glasses for her precise shot, while the blonde girl expresses heartfelt gratitude for the rescue. Suddenly, the blonde girl gasps in shock, demanding to know what the woman with glasses is doing. Calmly kneeling with a knife in hand, the woman explains she is just relieved that the blonde girl is safe. The woman with glasses begins carefully dismantling the slime, explaining that doing this first helps preserve its freshness longer. The blonde girl watches intently as the woman draws a well-maintained, sharp knife, which the young man recognizes as a must-have skill for porters. The woman reveals the knife is a keepsake from her father, smiling warmly as she shows it off. The trio discusses the importance of slowing the slime's decay, with the woman wishing they could chill it but accepting the situation. The young man suddenly recalls a nearby river, noting its presence could make a huge difference. Both women react with surprise and disbelief, the blonde girl blushing as they consider the possibility of using the river to preserve the slime. The trio stands before a flowing river in the forest, the sound of rushing water filling the air. The young man confirms the river's existence. While the 2 women express surprise, he points out a cluster of magic herbs nearby, questioning if it's normal to find them so quickly. The women shake their heads, clearly impressed by the discovery. Walking along the riverbank, the young man explains that finding a water source is the biggest challenge on expeditions and that having this ability is almost military-level classified. The women listen intently as he admits he guessed the river's location, prompting a plea from one woman not to sigh in exasperation. The young man reveals that his method was pure intuition, a sixth sense honed by experience, which surprises the women. He commands them to stay sharp and prepare for battle as a large creature's paw appears, signaling imminent danger. Two snarling tusk dogs, labeled rank E, charge toward the group. The blonde woman resolves to give her all, while the woman with glasses acknowledges how dangerous the situation could have been if the young man hadn't noticed. The trio readies their weapons as the beasts close in, bracing for the fight ahead. The blonde girl activates a speed-enhancing spell, dashing forward with her staff as two snarling tusk dogs sprint toward her. One already wounded by an arrow, she closes the distance rapidly, determination etched on her face. She shouts a fierce battle cry as the larger beast lunges at her with bared teeth, narrowly missing her as she braces for impact and prepares to counterattack. The girl commands the beast to fall, raising her staff defensively while the snarling creature lunges again, saliva dripping from its open mouth in a vicious snarl. With a powerful swing, she strikes the beast's head, shattering its skull with a resounding crack, while the young man watches with a confident smile, signaling the successful hit. The vitality of both tusk dogs lies at 0, confirming their defeat, while the narration notes their movements were superior to when they fought the slime. One dog lies motionless with an arrow embedded in its head, a testament to Firen's lethal precision. The young woman urges Firen to finish the task, while the young man smiles confidently, stating they only need to harvest the magic herb now. Firen swiftly draws her bow, determined to handle the dismantling herself, but the young man urgently calls for her to wait. She pauses, confused as the blonde girl explains there's no need for further attacks since the beasts are already down. The young man points out how impressive it was that Lily defeated one with just her staff, highlighting the effectiveness of their combined efforts. The young man informs them both that they have leveled up, praising Firen's focus and Lily's attack power as exceeding expectations. He credits their success to a great frontline and rearline combo, humbly including himself as part of the trio. With their victory secured, he suggests taking the water spirit grass and heading back, while instructing Firen to dismantle the tusk dogs and promising to gather the spirit grass himself. Under the glow of the full moon, a young man presents a souvenir to Major Rubel, who greets him warmly with a wink and a smile. The two share a moment of familiarity, exchanging greetings as the young man notes the Major's good mood, signaling a friendly reunion between Rudolph and the newcomer. A confident older man with long hair and a beard raises a bottle of wine, expressing how the arrival of an intriguing young man from Bellart has stirred his spirit. The younger man, sitting nearby with a glass of wine, reveals military forest results showing the slime jelly rated S and task dog's pelts rated B and SS, along with pinpointed locations of water spirit grass. The older man drinks deeply, calling the young man a terrifying brat, while the younger one modestly insists he hasn't done much. He explains the SS rating is the highest ever, and many will likely want to serve under the young man, which could raise the overall trainee level. The older man acknowledges the younger's swift progress and announces the next mission involves interpersonal combat, a challenge many soldiers struggle with despite its necessity. The younger man assures him it should be manageable, confident the young man won't back down. The scene shifts to a young man waking abruptly in a simple room, mentally scolding himself for a bad habit, but quickly refocusing on the day's mission: eliminating a dangerous criminal. A young man is shocked to learn his mission is to eliminate a culprit responsible for recent child murders, not just capture them. He is told he may involve subordinates and that reinforcements will arrive the next morning. The weight of the task presses on him, considering the criminal unforgivable and possibly worse than Anne Melisa. Stirred by noise early in the morning, the young man wakes and wonders about the reinforcements' experience. As the door opens, a girl scolds him for being late and making a lady wait, demanding the mission papers. A younger girl reminds her that casual talk is normal between sparring partners, not disrespect. The young man apologizes for his sister's quick judgments as he introduces the newcomer. A trainee candidate like Lily who had objected before, T is prepared, and he clarifies he is still only a cadet candidate. The group settles down, with the young man curious about the tea offered by the blonde girl. The young man is warmly greeted by the girl who just arrived, who chides him for his tardiness and asks if he brought the mission papers. The younger girl defends casual speech between sparring partners, while the young man leads the newcomers inside, setting the stage for the upcoming mission. Bound tightly and gagged, the young woman struggles fiercely, muffling her protests as she thrashes against her restraints. The young man and the black-haired girl hold her firmly, with the young man accusing her of being the perverted one who hugged him first, while she protests indignantly. The young man apologizes and asks the black-haired girl to untie their captive, who calls out for help. She agrees reluctantly, and the young man suggests discussing the mission once the bindings are removed, while the black-haired girl nods hesitantly. Seated around a table, the young man comments on how similar the two girls look. Noting their matching eyes, the black-haired girl snaps at him to remember her name, correcting him from Lamaria to Marlia, while the young man admits his mistake and asks her name, prompting her to introduce herself as Milo. He internally acknowledges her as the outspoken one. The black-haired girl insists she only came along on the mission because her sister was specifically summoned, declaring she will handle everything herself and demonstrate her true strength. The young man tries to interject, but she cuts him off, asserting her determination to take charge. The young woman fiercely declares she will make him regret not choosing her over Lily, while the young man looks taken aback by her intensity. Suddenly, the black-haired girl grabs her sister, warning her to stop as she threatens to tie her up, while the blonde girl and the other young woman watch with amused expressions, the blonde teasing that next time she'll use more force. Nearby, the blonde woman and the young man discuss Aruto making Lily his subordinate, confirming the situation as the blonde woman sips her drink, noting the tension is just being taken out on her. The young man introduces Marlia and Milo, who have arrived as reinforcements for the mission, asking the others to take care of his sister. The blonde woman beams with delight, calling Marlia and Milo cute. While Lily greets them warmly, Marlia looks stern and distant, while Milo sits politely beside her. The young man is asked about the mission details, and he solemnly reveals it involves eliminating a murderer targeting children. The blonde woman reacts with shock and disbelief, unable to accept the gravity of the task. The young man firmly states he cannot forgive such a crime. The blonde woman confidently readies her bow, assuring everyone she will take down the target with a single arrow. Much to Lily's excitement, the group sits together in the room, the young man looking thoughtful as the blonde woman explains the target will flee if adults are nearby, making children the most suitable for this mission. Two girls, one with light hair and the other with dark hair and hairpins, declare they will act as captives alongside Lily to lure the target in, while the young man acknowledges the plan's danger and asks Lily for her opinion. The blonde girl enthusiastically praises the young man for being entrusted with such an important mission and vows to do her best, while the young man assigns Milo to Firen's care, prompting Milo to nervously agree as the young man briefly considers switching responsibilities. Suddenly, Milo collapses, causing alarm among the group as the young woman urgently calls out for his medicine, instructing Lily and Firen to prepare water and a bed, while the others respond quickly to the emergency. Milo lies in bed, sweating and struggling, while the young man silently prays for his recovery, contemplating whether to use appraisal magic despite his hesitation, as the others watch on with concern. The young man reflects on how his appraisal ability is treated as a military secret, emphasizing the risks of making it public. He acknowledges that securing water sources on expeditions is a major challenge and that his ability to guarantee such security is unheard of and beyond common sense. A woman with glasses expresses her doubts about appraising monsters at all, while a blonde girl warns that revealing the ability would carry huge risks, despite others needing to get used to it. He feels, the more people know about his power, the greater the danger becomes, his eyes burning with determination as he quietly declares himself. Turning to the black-haired girl, he asks her to step aside and apologizes to the blonde and another young woman named Firen. The black-haired girl questions what he plans to do to the boy with the small hair clip, surprised when he reveals he intends to use appraisal magic. A glowing magical circle appears as he prepares to cast the spell, his expression serious and resolved. The young man smiles confidently as the magical appraisal circle hovers before him, hopeful that this ability might be the key to saving the boy in distress. The young man reveals that Milo's mana level is dangerously low, even dipping into the negatives, which likely explains his poor condition. He suggests that if they can supply mana to him and convert it into a positive state, Milo might recover. The dark-haired girl reacts with surprise, asking if that's really possible, and he assures her that at least for now, Milo's condition should improve. She blushes, embarrassed but touched, while he gently tells her that her concern shows how much she cares for her little brother. The girl admits he is her only little brother and that she deeply cares for him. The young man smiles warmly and asks what she plans to do next. Turning to a blonde girl with curled hair, he asks if she can perform mana support. The blonde, initially surprised, confirms the term and explains that mana support involves raising the target's magic stat to temporarily increase their mana capacity. The young man explains that if Milo's mana recovers, his symptoms should improve, prompting the blonde to agree to try. The group stands together, ready to act. The dark-haired girl earnestly asks the blonde to take care of Milo, who responds with a confident smile and a promise to handle it. The blonde's cheerful determination reassures everyone as they prepare to support Milo's recovery. The two walk down a hallway, discussing the mission details they've already heard, agreeing to share the information with Lily later. The dark-haired girl, her face serious and determined, quietly vows to put an end to the threat. She reveals she once stabbed the man who used to be her father in self-defense, then states she will send reinforcements the next morning. The young man listens intently, asking if he must carry out the mission alone, and is told that while it's acceptable, there are reasons to have support. The blonde-haired officer explains that their country operates on meritocracy, where even soldiers with strength can prioritize their own judgment. He assures the young man that if he follows orders, he will take responsibility for the outcome. The officer warns that going against orders means the responsibility falls solely on the individual. He emphasizes that those who act on their own judgment must accept responsibility in exchange for their freedom, prompting the young man to nervously acknowledge and understand the gravity of this principle. The young man watches the dark-haired girl walk away, noting silently that she is a backup sent by the major to ensure their mission's success. She turns back, and he acknowledges that in case of emergency, they will rely on her. The girl reviews a report in a kitchen, summarizing the recent crimes. A random assault on March 24th followed by 3 consecutive days of offenses, totaling 10 victims after a 7-day gap and 4 days of killings. The investigation lead has shifted from the police to the military. The young woman details the crimes further, explaining the victims were aged 10 to 16, attacked in alleys away from public view around dusk. The weapon was a blade causing multiple stab wounds, and the killings were brutal and gruesome, as shown by a bloodied crime scene. The two discuss the ongoing string of attacks, with the girl insisting she will eliminate the culprit today, preventing a 5th consecutive day of killings. The young man protests, but she insists it's not just him. It's them together responsible, he concedes, allowing her to think of it that way, as she stares determinedly ahead. The young man suggests confirming the location of today's crime scene, prompting the dark-haired girl to ask for clarification. He reveals Major Rubel pinpointed the site, though he himself is unsure how. The young man reflects that appearances can be deceiving, noting the major doesn't seem like someone capable of such precise insight. Pointing at a map, he identifies the crime scene near the south gate, commending the girl for narrowing it down. She questions if the culprit flees when adults approach, and he agrees, hinting someone else might have tracked the location just like her. The girl compares the situation to how the young man has Lily and a certain pervert accompanying him, implying Major Rubel also commands capable subordinates. The young man contemplates this, realizing the major likely has competent aides as well, and they agree to continue their investigation. A blonde woman sneezes, prompting concern from a nearby companion who asks if she has a cold. She assures she's fine and declares the mission complete. Behind them, the scene shows numerous fallen bandits, with the blonde noting that certain enemies were absent among the defeated. Milo apologizes for causing worry but assures everyone he feels much better now, surprising the group who expected him to be bedridden all day. The young man smiles warmly, relieved by the improvement, when suddenly a magical ping sound draws his attention. The dark-haired girl notes that while Milo's negative condition has lessened and his mana capacity recovered, the negative effect hasn't vanished entirely. She recalls feeling the change when appraising him, just as the blonde excitedly clings to Milo, who protests for her to get off. The young man watches as Milo lies in bed, his abdomen glowing with absorbing mana. He worries that disturbing it carelessly could worsen Milo's symptoms, and suspects the cause lies within that area. Determined not to remain idle, he resolves to gather more information through other means, thanking the blonde for her help. Turning to the group, the young man suggests training to increase Milo's mana capacity, explaining that doing so could lessen the suffering if another episode occurs. The blonde and the dark-haired girl listen thoughtfully, considering the proposal as he asks for their opinion. The young man firmly resolves that increasing his mana will ease the pain, declaring his determination to endure any training necessary. The dark-haired girl looks on with a surprised expression as he confidently commits to the challenge. The young man, holding an ornate book, encourages starting with a practice to boost mana, handing the book over as the dark-haired girl accepts with resolve, promising to do her best. He assures her that he will provide another book for her other talents next time, smiling warmly as she expresses gratitude. The young man announces his departure while the dark-haired girl and the blonde woman prepare to accompany him. The blonde woman salutes confidently, entrusting the care of the young man to the dark-haired girl, who cheerfully responds with a promise to take good care. The young man examines a detailed report on Milo Alstro, noting his mana level is dangerously low and likely the cause of his poor condition. He resolves that if they can provide mana and shift it into positive energy, Milo might recover. The dark-haired girl reacts with surprise, while the young man reassures her that this will at least improve Milo's current state. The girl blushes, embarrassed by the young man's comment that her concern shows she truly cares for her little brother. He smiles warmly, asking what she plans to do next. She reflects quietly, admitting her deep care for her only younger brother, and softly acknowledges the warmth of family. The young man turns to a blonde woman, asking if she can perform mana support. She confirms, explaining that mana support temporarily raises the target's magic stat, increasing their mana capacity. The blonde woman, along with the dark-haired girl, listens attentively as the young man explains that if Milo's mana recovers, his symptoms should improve. The blonde agrees to try, showing determination to help. The dark-haired girl earnestly asks the blonde to take good care of Milo. Bowing slightly in request, the blonde woman confidently accepts the responsibility, promising to handle it, her expression bright and reassuring. The group quietly walks down a hallway, discussing the limited time before their mission and agreeing to keep the details to themselves for now. Planning to share the information with Lily later, the dark-haired girl, her expression serious and determined, vows to put an end to the situation. She reveals to the young man that she once stabbed the man who used to be her father in self-defense. Choosing not to elaborate further, he listens intently as she promises to send reinforcements the next morning, and he acknowledges her decision. They discuss the mission's true purpose, testing whether he can take a life, with her confirming his insight while allowing him to act alone if he insists, though she hints caution. The blonde man explains that their country operates on meritocracy, where even the choice to accept a mission reflects one's ability. He emphasizes that soldiers with strength can often prioritize their own judgment, and assures the young man that if he follows orders, the responsibility for the outcome lies with him. The young man takes notes, absorbing the weight of command. The blonde man warns that going against orders places full responsibility on the individual, stressing that those who act on their own judgment must accept the consequences in exchange for their freedom. The young man nervously agrees, while the blonde man cheerfully reminds him to remember this principle, clapping his hands in encouragement as the young man steels himself for the challenge ahead. The young man watches the dark-haired girl as she stands, revealed to be a backup sent by the major to ensure their mission's success. She faces him, and he acknowledges that in case of emergency, they will rely on her. The girl reviews a detailed report, summarizing the recent crimes. A random assault on March 24th followed by 3 consecutive days of offenses, totaling 10 victims after a 7-day gap. The investigation has shifted from police to military jurisdiction due to the severity. The girl explains the crimes targeted children aged 10 to 16, occurring in alleys away from public view around dusk. The weapon was a blade causing multiple stab wounds, and the killings were brutal and gruesome, illustrated by a bloodied scene with a victim lying on the ground. They discuss the ongoing string of 5 consecutive days of killings, but the girl insists it won't continue because she plans to eliminate the culprit today. The young man protests, but she clarifies that it's not just him. It's both of them responsible. He reluctantly agrees to see it her way as she firmly declares that the responsibility belongs to them. The young man and the dark-haired girl lean over a table, discussing the day's crime scene with focused expressions. He questions if it's a pre-announced murder, but she clarifies Major Rubel pinpointed the location, leaving him surprised by the Major's unexpected skill. A close-up of a map reveals the crime scene near the south gate. They acknowledge the culprit flees when adults approach, praising the narrowing of the search area. The girl wonders if someone else tracked it down, hinting at a mysterious third party. The two continue their conversation in a kitchen, the girl nervously squeezing a lemon while the young man reflects on Major Rubel's capable subordinates, comparing them to their own allies. He contemplates the implications of the Major's network before she urges to proceed. Outside, the blonde woman sneezes but insists she's fine as the young man asks if she caught a cold. She declares the mission complete, noting the absence of certain bandits among the fallen enemies scattered on the ground, suggesting a deeper mystery behind the attack. The young man apologizes sincerely for causing worry, assuring everyone he feels much better now. Standing beside the bed, he is met with relief and smiles from the 2 young women, one commenting that he would normally be bedridden all day. Suddenly, he notices a ping from a device in his hand. A magical appraisal reveals that while his negative value has decreased and his mana capacity has recovered, the negative effect has not vanished entirely. The young man reflects on the appraisal, feeling the improvement firsthand as one girl joyfully clings to him, while the other protests her enthusiasm. The young man lies in bed as mana is absorbed into his body, with a dark aura concentrated around his abdomen. Concerned, he notes that careless interference could worsen his symptoms. Suspecting the cause lies in something inside his stomach, he resolves that they cannot remain idle and must gather more information by other means, expressing gratitude to the blonde-haired girl for her help. Standing by a cabinet filled with books, he suggests using appraisal magic to try increasing his mana. The young man offers to train to boost his mana capacity, explaining that doing so should reduce the suffering if another episode occurs. The blonde-haired girl smiles warmly, asking for his thoughts on the plan. The young man clenches his shirt with determination, resolving that increasing his mana will ease his pain. He firmly declares his commitment to endure any training necessary, surprising the dark-haired girl who watches him with wide eyes. Holding an ornate book, he smiles warmly as he begins the first step of his training to boost his mana. The book is handed over to him, and he promises to do his best, while the blonde woman encourages him, mentioning she will provide another book for his other talents next time. The young man announces his departure, standing alongside the dark-haired girl and the blonde woman with horns. The blonde woman tasks Firen with looking after him, prompting a cheerful farewell from the young man and a confident salute from Firen as they prepare for what lies ahead. The young man explains appraisal magic as a spell that makes the target less noticeable to those around them, likening it to erasing one's presence. The blonde-haired girl confirms this, while he reflects on how the effect accidentally reversed by manipulating mana flow, creating a stealth-like ability that hides visible parts of oneself. Pointing ahead, he draws attention to a black cat that had hissed at the dark-haired girl earlier. Noting it doesn't notice them despite their close proximity, they realize sound cannot be hidden, as the cat reacts to footsteps, highlighting the limitations of their invisibility. They discuss how voices and footsteps must be managed to avoid detection, acknowledging that while they aren't truly invisible, the spell works well enough to avoid notice unless someone consciously senses them. The young man notes the magic's drawback is its ineffectiveness against high-level monsters, pondering the implications as they remain unseen by a figure farther away. The blonde girl bursts into tears, overwhelmed by the classified nature of the information and how different the reality of erasing presence is from her expectations. She warns that if the details were public, it would lead to fatal overwork as an SSS rank mage, while the young man nervously urges her to keep such secrets. The young man recalls using the magic for the first time while scouting a dungeon to protect his companions from monsters, confidently stating that monsters feared him because he was the one defeating them. The blonde woman questions when exactly he used the magic, and he hesitates before explaining. He reflects that it feels like a waste. The blonde woman listens as he explains that dungeon scouting is fine, but the magic is also useful for monster hunting, VIP rescues, infiltration missions, and even the tailing they are currently doing. He realizes that just using it on himself already has many applications, but wonders about using it on others. The two stand in a narrow, shadowed alley as he elaborates on the magic's versatility, emphasizing its usefulness beyond scouting. Suddenly, they notice ominous black bloodlust seeping everywhere in the dungeon. The young man senses danger, noting that if he shifts his gaze, the monsters will attack more easily. The young woman looks worried, asking what she should do as the monsters linger close but hesitate to strike. The young woman stands frozen in a web-filled corridor, a shadowy monster's claw reaching toward her from behind. She contemplates retreating, feeling the threat closing in. The young man watches from a corner, analyzing the situation carefully. The tension rises as the dark presence looms, and she debates whether to turn back. Surrounded by thick webs, the young woman faces the monstrous shadow with a mix of fear and resolve. The creature's claw stretches toward her, and she quietly considers that maybe she should retreat, caught between the danger and her determination to press forward. A shadowy figure suddenly grabs the young woman from behind, covering her mouth to silence her protests as his grin widens and his tongue licks her cheek. He warns her that it's dangerous to be alone in such a place, holding her tightly against the crumbling wall. The man insists he will escort her home, urging her to go back together. The young woman notes his hesitation to attack immediately. Thinking he might be cautious but also full of openings, she prepares to lure him, having gained a rough idea of his strength after a sudden, forceful strike. The cloaked man remarks on her liveliness, clearly enjoying the chase as she runs down a narrow alley. She focuses ahead, spotting the place she was seeking. She reaches the end of the alley only to find a dead end, but the man's hand appears from the shadows, revealing he enjoys this kind of trap. The young woman stands firm, unfazed by the cornered situation. A battered man with a knife grins menacingly, asking if their deadly game of tag has ended and what they should play next. The cloaked figure taunts the young woman, suggesting he could cut her into pieces to make a better expression, while she nervously pleads for him not to come closer. The man laughs as the young woman quietly begs for help, and he ominously declares he will start with her smooth right leg, promising to be gentle. He mocks her silence, noting she's too scared to even make a sound. The young woman firmly warns him not to touch her with his filthy hands anymore as she swiftly stabs the man's hand, forcing him to drop the knife. The man clutches his wounded hand, blood dripping onto the floor, grimacing in pain and vowing revenge as the young woman stands silently behind him, her expression cold and resolute. The man's face twists in shock and fear as he demands to know who the girl really is. Convinced she is no ordinary girl, the girl's eyes glow ominously from the shadows as she bursts into a sinister laugh, her fist swinging fiercely toward him. She strikes him with a powerful punch. Shouting for him to shut up, the man is sent flying backward, crashing hard onto the ground, gasping in pain and shock. Standing over the fallen man, the girl coldly lifts her foot as if to deliver another blow, her expression unreadable beneath the shadow covering her face. She firmly declares that she owes him no answers, her gaze unwavering and resolute. Calmly tying the man's hands behind his back, she questions what the two unseen others are doing, noting she cannot sense them. Suddenly, the man's hand twitches as she reaches to grab him, but she quickly reassures him, identifying herself and urging him to stay calm, her eyes wide with sudden alarm. The young man apologizes for forgetting to release the spell, explaining he didn't mean to scare anyone. The young woman acknowledges his unconscious habits, noting he never means harm. While the other woman quietly agrees, he reminds himself to restore the mana flow to normal before anything else. The young woman suddenly asks if he said something, causing the other to nervously deny it. The girl with horns praises the young woman's strength, impressed she could catch him alone, prompting a quiet, amused exchange between them. They agree to wait for backup, confident reinforcements will arrive soon, and discuss what to do next now that everyone is safe. The young man decides to appraise the tied man until the unit arrives, revealing the captive's name is Hydro, a 38-year-old with 6 kills and a high slave value. He notes Hydro's disturbing preference for young girls and membership in a dark organization called the Serpent's Descendants. The young woman is asked to help search for a drop knife, believed to be the murder weapon, and she agrees to assist. The young man's appraisal reveals 6 victims, but he realizes the number should be 10, indicating 4 are missing. He curses himself for letting his guard down and urgently commands to appraise the surroundings, sweat dripping as he focuses intensely on the dangerous situation. The young woman stands with a calm, serious expression as the cloaked figure kneels on the ground. His hands press down with a heavy thud. She asks sharply if he is paying attention. Her gaze steady and commanding. The man's hooded face remains mostly hidden, but his eyes peer out intensely from beneath the shadow of his cloak. Suddenly, the cloaked man lunges forward with a swift, violent motion, his hand reaching out toward the young woman. A voice urgently shouts a warning to her, alerting her to the danger behind her. She turns her head in surprise, eyes wide, just as a dark, sweeping slash cuts across the scene, leaving a streak of destruction in its wake. The young man urgently warns the young woman to watch out as a cloaked figure lunges toward her from behind. He swiftly moves to intercept, blocking the attack with a fierce clash of their hands. The man struggles to hold the cloaked figure's grip, his hand trembling as he realizes he's losing sensation and can't win a direct confrontation. He resolves to risk everything, noting the enemy's disturbing habit of targeting children. The young man firmly declares he will never let the assassin named Ghidorah escape, his eyes sharp and determined. The cloaked figure questions his resolve, surprised by his unwavering stance despite his obvious fear. He warns the young woman to be careful, revealing the enemy is not acting alone. The cloaked figure admits he was mistaken in thinking the black-haired woman was the main threat, acknowledging the true danger lies elsewhere as the two women exchange concerned glances. The young man appraises the assassin named Ghidorah, noting his age, skills, and status. While reflecting that the assassin is a professional, stronger than himself, he considers the possibility of an ability user hiding nearby who can avoid appraisal detection. Scanning the area but finding no other responses, he suspects the assassin was hired by a dark organization called the Descendants of the Serpent, mentioned in the murderer's appraisal, and doubts the murderer himself hired the assassin. The young man calls out the assassin by name, noting that assassins likely dislike being addressed directly. The hooded figure questions how he knows his name, while the young man contemplates how wary the assassin is and debates his next move. Wanting to unsettle him further, he demands to know the assassin's employer. Imagining the assassin's thoughts, the young man watches as the assassin feigns ignorance, denying any knowledge. Suddenly, the assassin activates a magical circle, pouring mana finely and infusing it into his cells, startling the young man with this display of power. The assassin refuses to reveal his employer, but the young man presses on, accusing him of being hired by a man named Kaijin. The assassin remains silent as the young man stands firm, determined to uncover the truth behind the assassination plot. The cloaked assassin demands to know who the soldier is, while the young woman and the horned girl quietly identify him as Kaijin, the gatekeeper. The soldier calmly replies that he is just a soldier, sweat beading on his face as tension rises. Suddenly, the assassin throws a dagger with deadly precision, forcing the soldier to react quickly. The young woman shouts a warning for Lily to get back as the assassin lunges forward. The two women stand ready. But the assassin swiftly dashes away, disappearing around a corner. They call out for him to wait, but he presses his escape, his boots pounding the ground as he flees. The assassin's rapid footsteps echo as he tries to run, the two women watching him closely. He crouches low, preparing for another move, but the soldier and the horned girl remain alert, tracking his every step. The assassin crashes into a man, who screams in surprise, but the cloaked figure barrels forward relentlessly. The soldier narrows his eyes, confirming his suspicions about the assassin's true intentions as the chase intensifies. The young man lunges forward with a dagger, asserting that silencing him is more certain than killing someone they don't understand. The assassin reacts with frustration, spinning to counterattack, but the young man narrowly blocks the strike, his eyes burning with fierce determination. The assassin suddenly grabs the young man in a tight hold, pressing a bloodied knife against his side. The young man grimaces but refuses to yield, stabbing the blade deep into the assassin's body. The assassin cries out in pain, blood splattering as he reels from the wound. The assassin collapses to the ground with a startled scream, while the young man and two women watch cautiously from a nearby alley. The assassin accuses the young man of trying to kill him, but a magical appraisal reveals the assassin's vitality is critically low, barely surviving the encounter. The young man, battered and bruised, finally stops moving and scans the area for any threats. Finding no suspicious individuals nearby, he contemplates the arrival of a support unit, wary that they might not be allies, and resolves to get the two women to safety while he can, suspecting the gatekeeper might be the assassin's employer. The injured young man lies on the ground, surrounded by two worried women and the cloaked assassin who watches silently nearby. One woman shouts for him to regain composure, while the other panics over the relentless bleeding. The young man urges calm, insisting there's nothing more they can do. Resolute, he decides to leave the injured man in their care and rushes off to summon medical help, his expression heavy with the weight of the situation. Suddenly, a magical appraisal signal appears, but his vision blurs, making it impossible to read the details. He realizes someone is approaching rapidly, faster than anyone he could summon, and his anxiety spikes as he acknowledges he might be too late. The two women beside him prepare to use speed-enhancing magic to keep up, while he struggles to process the unexpected arrival. The young man leaps away, explaining that he's entrusting the injured Aruto to Marlia's care. Both women look on with wide eyes, startled by the sudden movement and the gravity of the moment as the cloaked assassin disappears into the shadows, leaving the group tense and uncertain about what comes next. The two women stand over the fallen young man as a massive, shadowy figure looms threateningly before them. The injured man urges the women to run, insisting it's him the figure wants. The horned girl and the young woman exchange determined glances, ready to face the threat themselves. A stern, battle-worn man arrives, explaining he sensed the boy's mana and disturbance, prompting his check-in. He notes the boy was hit twice but dismisses the injuries as minor. The two women react with shock and disbelief at the severity of the wounds being called minor. The young man apologizes for the trouble and requests the battle-hardened man to escort his two companions to the academy. Though wary, he acknowledges they have no choice but to trust him for now. The older man silently accepts the request, and the young man quietly thanks him, his expression heavy with unspoken emotion. The young man slowly awakens in a bright infirmary. Blinking up at the ceiling, the two women and a kind-looking medic greet him warmly, relieved to see him conscious. They explain he is in the military base's infirmary, welcoming him back from his ordeal with smiles of genuine care. The young man winces as he clutches his chest, clearly in pain, while a concerned girl with horns urges him to stay quiet, warning that his wounds might reopen. Despite the discomfort, he acknowledges the infirmary and expresses relief at being safe, his gaze softening as the girl smiles warmly at him. A dark-haired woman holding a bouquet informs him that he's been asleep for 3 days, confessing her worry over what would have happened if he hadn't woken up. The young man is shocked by the news, while the horned girl admits she was so worried she couldn't stop fussing. He notices the girl's injured leg, which she casually explains is just a sprain. The young man questions if his injury might be from the time he shoved the girl, but he quickly denies it, taking responsibility for his own carelessness and acknowledging that if she hadn't shielded him, he would have been killed. The woman reacts nervously, while he looks on with a calm expression, ready to move past the topic. The dark-haired woman thanks the young man sincerely for saving her. Standing alongside the horned girl, a medic and another woman, she requests that once he's settled, he share his side of the story to help her prepare a report on the incident. The young man agrees, feeling well enough to talk now, while the horned girl peeks through a window, ready to fetch the necessary materials. 1 week later, the young man walks down a long corridor flanked by two women, one with glasses and the other with horns. As they discuss their destination, the horned woman admits she was told the directions but lacks details, while the young man notes the vastness of the military facilities. Suddenly, the woman with glasses warns him not to wander into rooms with classified information, teasing him about his own curiosity. The horned woman points out that classified information is already present around them, urging him to become more aware. Both women firmly insist he is not normal, despite his protests. They arrive at a door where the woman with glasses knocks and invites them inside, announcing that Major Rudolph awaits beyond. Entering a spacious office, the young man and the two women are greeted warmly by a blonde man who enthusiastically welcomes them to their new workplace. The trio looks puzzled as they try to understand the situation, with the young man questioning why this is their workplace and the others wondering if he comprehends the gravity of the moment. The blonde man explains that as a reward for completing the mission, the young man will now handle classified mission information and that this office will be his new workplace. He then formally announces the young man's promotion to second lieutenant, addressing him as Cadet Officer Arudo, leaving the young man and the two women visibly surprised by the sudden elevation in rank and responsibility. The young man is told that in their country, he can aspire to nobility and be guaranteed a normal life, causing a bright spark of realization in his eyes. The group learns that his rank is equivalent to a baron among neighboring countries. He is assured that although the formal promotion will come after entrance exams, his acceptance is guaranteed, prompting congratulations from the two women beside him. When asked if he dislikes nobility, he quickly denies it, explaining that his current position is already more than enough and that the idea of suddenly becoming nobility feels unreal. The blonde man admits it was an oversight and suggests the promotion should have happened earlier, questioning what might have changed if more capable comrades had been present during the mission. The young man listens intently, surprised by the implication. The blonde man continues, pointing out that with higher rank comes heavier responsibility, but also that the walls of rank will no longer hinder him. He acknowledges the young man's skill in finding unique subordinates and expresses hope that he will soon have many reliable ones. The young man hesitates, insisting he is not the kind of person who should stand above others, gripping the armrest tightly as he contemplates the weight of his new role. Resolving himself, the young man smiles warmly and pledges to do his very best, committing to the responsibilities ahead with determination and sincerity. The young man is asked to provide the mission report, and he agrees quietly, seated at a table with two women. He explains the difficulty in conveying the full details but reveals they obtained information about a traitor within the military. The blonde man calmly confirms his suspicions, causing the young man to react with surprise, questioning if the other already knew. The blonde man states that the report from the young man and the escort unit did not match. The young man listens intently as the blonde man points out that he restrained two murderers and inflicted a serious abdominal wound on one, but the escort unit's report claimed both were dead, killed by a single stab to the heart. The young man is shocked by this discrepancy as the blonde man presents the conflicting reports. The young woman quickly denies any involvement in the murders, and the blonde man acknowledges hearing from Major Rurabel that she was not responsible. The blonde man then explains he had suspected internal trouble for some time, noting the mission already seems suspicious due to the higher-ups' movements. He places two reports on the table, one from the young man and one from the escort unit, highlighting the differences between them. The young man examines the documents carefully as the blonde man admits they do not yet know if the report is false or a substitution. The blonde man reads aloud the title of the investigation report. Naming Itar Mataroy as the forger, he identifies the name as that of a clerk dispatched by the upper ranks, deepening the intrigue surrounding the internal betrayal. The young man contemplates the revelation that Itar Mataroy altered the report, questioning why someone would risk such a thing. The woman with glasses suggests the falsification was meant to mislead Major Rurabel with false information, but warns that the deception would be exposed upon examination. The young man doubts anyone would intentionally leave evidence behind, while the other woman confirms that no one normally compares mission reports side by side. The young man and the two women react with surprise as Major Rurabel states that Arudo should learn more about the appraisers and attend training with them once things settle. The young man is taken aback by the mention of training, while the major admits he had received the report but never imagined the situation would escalate this far. The major reveals he has assigned Cadet Marlia and her younger brother Milo under the young man's command, surprising him as he asks if the major persuaded her. The major clarifies it was their own request, while the young man internally imagines Marlia vehemently refusing to serve under him. The major concludes his report, informing that the mock battle will be cancelled due to the situation and the approaching entrance exam. The young man acknowledges the information and asks if there is any other information obtained, signaling he has one more thing to address. The young man reveals that when they appraised the murderers, the name of a peculiar organization, the Descendants of the Serpent, surfaced. He suspects this group's involvement and identifies Corporal Kaijin, the gatekeeper, as the assassin's employer, causing a sharp, wide-eyed reaction from the blonde man. The young man warns that they may be planning to eliminate him under the guise of an accident. The young man explains that his mission overlaps with Major Rurabel's until the final day of the entrance exam, after which another will take over as supervisor. The young woman finds this extremely suspicious, and the young man worries about their safety amid the suspicious mission. The blonde man calmly assures him it's fine, though his expression hints at deeper knowledge. The blonde man's image begins to fragment as he states that a member of the Madaroy family falsified the report, linking the descendants of the serpent and Corporal Kaijin. He admits now having a pretext to strike and tells the young man to rest for the day. Leaving the room with a final farewell, the young man and the two women watch the closed door in silence. The following day, the group gathers outdoors, placing their hands together in a show of unity. The young woman encourages everyone to work together and give their all as they prepare for the entrance exam. The young man's eyes reflect magical support applied to their stats, with strength and agility boosts noted for his companions. The young woman asks how he feels, signaling the start of a new challenge ahead. The group celebrates as all their support spells succeed simultaneously, prompting the young man to ask Lily what she did. She explains she practiced casting multiple support spells at once, though she feels embarrassed forming a circle for it. He notes that touching the staff while casting reduces her fatigue and hides the magic from others, but she remains shy about the process. The young man assigns tasks. Fyron will continue target practice, while Marlia and Lily will spar. As the others disperse, he calls Milo for meditation training, his footsteps echoing down the hallway with a sense of urgency. The young man opens a door to an empty room, the silence and emptiness emphasizing the quiet before something unfolds. Kaijin appears at the training site, not hiding his presence, which puzzles the group. They speculate he looks down on them and has come openly to silence them, questioning his true intentions as they gather in a tense circle. The young man reflects on Kaijin Coral, a 28-year-old Imperial soldier revealed as a spy from the Kingdom of Drummed and a member of the Descendants of the Serpent. Noting the surprising betrayal of a baron's family, he looks out over the city rooftops, relieved that the appraisal information has been widely shared. Meanwhile, a figure with a quiver of arrows draws a bowstring, preparing to shoot from a high vantage point. An arrow flies swiftly through the air across the rooftops, its trajectory cutting through the cityscape. The young woman with glasses senses the danger and urgently warns everyone to get down. The arrow lands near them, narrowly missing, and the group falls back in alarm. The young woman shouts for everyone to take cover as the arrow strikes the ground close by. The group tumbles behind a tree, startled but unharmed. The arrow is revealed to carry a folded message tied. The young man examines the message carefully while the others check on each other, concerned but safe. The note reveals a warning from Major Rurabel, admitting a rat exists in the military's upper ranks and instructing the young man to confront Rudolph outside the grounds on the day of the entrance exam. Apologizing for being unable to come himself, the young man resolves that until the exam, they must remain vigilant and continue training without lowering their guard, accepting their role as decoys while the majors are absent. On the day of the exam, the young man notices Marlia is missing as the group moves forward. Urging each other to keep pace, he carefully checks his gear, including 2 knives tied to a rope in his wallet. Reminding himself to prepare thoroughly and double-check everything, he instructs Milo to watch the flow of mana and report any abnormalities, emphasizing the importance of vigilance. The young man admits his vision of the mana flow is still blurry, unable to detect anything unusual, while the young woman and the bespectacled woman express admiration for his rare ability. He decides to appraise the surroundings just in case, prompting surprise from Milo and the others as a sudden magical display erupts nearby. The young man is amazed as he truly sees the mana flow emanating from Arudo, confirming the extraordinary nature of his perception. Both women urge support for Arudo-sama, noting that Milo has inadvertently seen classified military secrets as well, while Milo reacts with confusion and surprise. Arriving at the first venue of the entrance exam, the young man is overwhelmed by the massive crowd of participants. He wonders aloud if so many people always take part, and the young woman confirms that this is the usual scale, underscoring the magnitude of the challenge ahead. The young man notes the presence of dwarves and elves among the exam participants, surprised that these races, known for rarely leaving their homelands, are taking the test. He learns the acceptance rate remains a strict 12-to-1 each year. The crowd's diversity impresses him as he is alerted to the arrival of the Queen of the Grouse Empire. The young woman beside him explains the empire offers top benefits and pay, making it a coveted opportunity. A graceful woman, identified as the 24th Queen of the Grouse Empire, Spulria Testerat, appears surrounded by blooming flowers, her serene expression conveying high expectations for the examinees to demonstrate their full abilities. 2 armored men discuss the empire's title conventions, questioning why the ruler is called queen instead of empress. They mention a rumor that a woman shouldn't call herself emperor, but dismiss it as hearsay, noting the queen's superior political skill. An elderly official calls for examinee number 1, Arudo, and any others wishing to test alongside him to step forward, signaling the exam's imminent start. The group of 5, including the young man, the young woman, and others, introduce themselves politely. They are led to a room filled with weapons where they are instructed to choose arms for a mock battle. With lethality reduced for safety, the young woman reacts in dismay upon realizing there are no bows available, as ranged weapons will be tested separately the next day at another venue. The young woman asks if she can use her own weapon, and the elderly man grants permission without hesitation. She expresses her gratitude with a bright smile as the man encourages her to do her best. The young man contemplates quietly, noticing that the judge's record contains no mention of the descendants of the serpent. Confirming this isn't a setup, he instructs 2 companions, Firen and Milo, to hold onto the weapons, and they acknowledge the order. The arena is filled with a massive crowd as the official reminds examinees not to focus solely on winning or losing, but to showcase what makes them unique. The young man pledges to give everything he has, inspired by the strength of his seniors. A confident man commends him for not running away, while the young man warns Lily to be cautious of 3 opponents hiding weapons laced with paralytic poison. Lily responds with determination. Ready to support him, the man sneers disdainfully, muttering about filthy commoners. The group of 4 stands together, forming a circle as they encourage each other to do their best. The young woman and the young man exchange glances, while the others affirm their readiness. One of the men confidently claims that the 2 of them are more than enough to handle the others, setting the stage for the upcoming confrontation. The elderly man signals the start of the first round of exams, reminding everyone to ensure no one gets hurt. The young man, Lily, and their companions spring into action, moving swiftly and purposefully as they prepare to end the match quickly and decisively. The young woman lunges forward, swinging a rope with determined precision toward a shield-bearing opponent who watches her approach with a calm smile, noting that she charges straight in like a cadet in training. She swiftly wraps the rope around him, her focused expression unwavering as he grips a dagger, his eyes wide with shock at her unexpected move. The young woman expertly trips him, causing him to slip and fall, while a nearby observer comments that his speed is 9, placing him below her despite support, and another remarks on how easily he was bypassed. She questions if he should be watching her so closely, while he clutches his shield and knife, clearly unsettled. Suddenly, the rope tightens, pulling the man off balance and flipping him upside down. His stunned face framed by the rope as the young woman maintains her grip, illustrating the danger of diverting attention from an opponent mid-fight. The young woman sharply questions if the other is stupid as she turns away, while the young man calls out urgently, demanding she not leave since the fight isn't over. A thrown weapon clatters to the ground, and a male opponent grimaces in pain as the young woman strikes him with her staff. The man struggles to comprehend the young woman's speed and power, doubting she is truly a mage since she fights so fiercely in close range. She fixes him with a determined glare before delivering a powerful blow that sends him reeling backward. The young man observes the battle, noting that thanks to the distraction, the young woman appears unharmed and ready. He prepares to act, gripping a dagger behind his back while the opponent snarls, calling him useless trash and hurling a heavy weapon toward him with a shout. The young man effortlessly dodges the attack, revealing the opponent's killing intent was obvious. The astonished enemy questions why he dodged while facing the wrong way, but the young man calmly notes the judge seems to be ignoring the fight, possibly asleep, as the young woman and another watch silently nearby. The crowd watches in awe and disbelief at the overwhelming victory, voices expressing amazement and surprise at the outcome. The young man, standing resolute beside the young woman, calmly notes that the odds have shifted to 3 against 1, questioning if they will continue. An elderly man urges the lone opponent to cease resistance and surrender, his expression stern and unwavering. Inside a dimly lit room, a confident figure informs the young man that his so-called main operation is already being dismantled by the majors, with those who gave orders likely under arrest. The young man reacts with a mix of frustration and curiosity, questioning the meaning behind the main operation and the fate of the leaders, while the other man laughs mockingly. The young man processes the revelation that the previous confrontation was a mere setup, with the real operation yet to be revealed. His eyes widen in shock as he realizes the knife thrown earlier still carries paralytic poison. Confirming the danger is far from over, meanwhile, a terrified figure recoils as a dark, ominous force swirls nearby, signaling an impending threat. Outside, a powerful vortex of dark energy rages amidst a chaotic scene, with debris and lightning swirling violently. The antagonist exclaims gleefully about the unexpected sacrifice, praising the surge of mana as he calls upon a sacred ancestor to unleash devastation upon the nation of commoners. The young man and his companions prepare to flee, urged to escape the overwhelming power closing in on them. A massive explosion erupts, sending debris and flames flying as the group scrambles to escape the chaos. Their terrified screams filling the air. The camera shifts to reveal the enormous, coiling body of a serpent, its scales glistening ominously. The serpent's glowing eyes pierce the darkness, radiating a menacing presence. The serpent emerges fully, its massive form towering over the ruined surroundings, smoke and rubble swirling around it as it prepares to strike. The group, battered but alive, looks on in shock and confusion, struggling to comprehend the devastation. One woman clutches her arm in pain while others scan the area anxiously. Concerned voices rise as the group checks on each other, questioning the whereabouts of their leader and the status of their weapons. The young man grimly notes that their weapons are ineffective against the serpent, his expression tense as he assesses the dire situation. A woman breathes a sigh of relief that one companion remains unharmed, though the threat still looms large. The young man attempts to appraise the serpent's attributes, but the magical appraisal fails, leaving all details unknown. Sweat beads on his forehead as he realizes that no matter how many times they try, their efforts against the serpent will be futile, underscoring the overwhelming danger they face. A colossal serpent coils menacingly under a starry sky, its glowing eyes piercing the darkness as it looms over the group of survivors. One man clutches his abdomen in terror, shouting for help just before the serpent strikes, impaling him with a brutal, fatal blow. A sinister figure revels in the carnage, arms spread wide as he commands the serpent to feast, dismissing the arrival of a messenger from the kingdom as irrelevant once their country is destroyed. He orders the capture of the fleeing appraiser and declares the traitorous exile will become snake food, his expression cold and ruthless. The captive man pleads desperately, pointing to the magical contract they signed as proof of their bond, but the cruel figure mocks the paper as worthless. He coldly instructs the serpent to devour the man along with the tied-up girl nearby, revealing that betraying them was always the plan and that bargaining as equals was never an option. The serpent lashes out, snatching the captive into its massive jaws despite his terrified protests. The creature's powerful jaws close around him as the man screams in agony, sealing his grim fate while the serpent's eyes gleam with deadly intent. The cruel figure grins wickedly, confident that with this newfound power, the destruction of their enemies will be swift and absolute. The man clutching his abdomen groans in pain, urged relentlessly to keep consuming as the serpent coils ominously behind him. Suddenly, the serpent wraps its massive body tightly around the man, who shouts in panic, demanding to know what the creature is doing. He pleads, asserting his noble status and that he was the one who summoned the beast, but his protests fall on deaf ears as he realizes the situation is spiraling out of control. The man is ensnared in a sticky net-like trap, suspended helplessly as the serpent's towering form looms above the devastated arena. The group of survivors watches in horror, their faces pale with fear and disbelief as they witness the serpent devouring once more, its size seemingly growing with each feeding. The serpent's monstrous head fills the frame, its eyes gleaming with hunger as the terrified group screams for escape. Panic spreads rapidly as they realize the creature's relentless appetite threatens to consume them all, forcing a desperate call to run before it's too late. A massive serpent rises from the rubble, its scales emitting dark smoke as its glowing eye snaps open. Countless smaller serpentine creatures with eerie eyes slither across the ground, converging toward the colossal beast, which coils and prepares to strike amidst the ruined cityscape. Dark, viscous tendrils spread across the sky, blotting out the sunlight as alarmed soldiers shout warnings and rush to respond. Thick black liquid oozes from the sealed northern gate, blocking escape, while a desperate soldier yells for the intruders to stop their chaos. From above, a vast black barrier envelopes the city, trapping the survivors inside. Inside the barrier, a group presses their hands against the invisible wall, struggling to break through as they realize they are imprisoned and doomed to be consumed alive. At the southern gate, Police Unit Captain Laos Leon commands his troops, acknowledging the barrier's overwhelming, vile mana that even their strongest efforts cannot penetrate, despite the urgency. He orders a call for a high mage, uncertain if even the most powerful magic can shatter the deadly seal before it's too late. The young man stands solemnly, a glowing magical appraisal circle hovering before him as he reflects on the grim reality. The mastermind is dead, the barrier seals every escape, and the monster remains uncontrollable and immune to their magic. A failure none had anticipated. A man nearby grimly acknowledges that those trapped inside must ultimately face the threat on their own. A massive serpent egg lies on the ground, glistening as it begins to hatch, alarming the group who watch in shock. The young man quickly resolves that their only option is to destroy the egg, urging the others to lend their strength, while the women around him express determined agreement. The young man reacts with disbelief to the chaos unfolding during what should be a routine yearly exam, realizing that they cannot handle the threat alone and must unite everyone present. A voice from a speaker addresses the crowd, suggesting this crisis will reveal who understands their limits and who does not, while the gathered group questions the source of the voice, recognizing it as the examiners. A diverse group of warriors, including a dwarf, an elf, and 2 men, stand ready for battle, embodying the meritocracy that the Empire upholds in moments of crisis like this, prepared to face the monstrous threat together. A group gathers amid the rubble, the city skyline behind them shrouded in smoke. The young man questions why everyone has come, while the woman beside him begins to speak. Suddenly, a sharp-eyed man with light hair and a fur-lined jacket demands to know who they are and what they mean. The conversation shifts to the monster they have been fighting, recalling how it was repeatedly struck with overwhelming magic. Faces of various warriors flash as they acknowledge the shared feeling of the monster's presence and the common sense to rally around a skilled fighter. A dwarf affirms the logic of gathering after witnessing such magic. The young man internally panics after using appraisal magic openly but is encouraged by a smiling ally to unite and defeat the threat together. The elf woman asks if there is any new information, but the answer is that nothing has been discovered yet, and the challenge will not be easy. The group stands determined amid the ruins. The young man wonders what their next move should be, hesitant to act without knowing the monster's weakness. Meanwhile, a figure with a mask and a sword reveals he plans to handle the situation alone, seeking glory for himself while others plot together. A masked warrior leaps from above, sword raised high, aiming to strike the giant serpent whose glowing eye watches from the rubble-strewn hall. He commands to first blind the monstrous creature by taking away its vision. The warrior slashes downward with immense force, but his blade is stopped by an invisible barrier, unable to penetrate. His wide eyes reveal shock and frustration as the serpent's eye remains unscathed. The serpent retaliates by firing a powerful beam from its eye, shattering part of the surrounding architecture. A man with slicked-back dark hair scolds the warrior for rushing ahead, while a young woman urgently calls out to someone named Alto, who receives weapons from another young man. Nearby, a girl watches in disbelief as countless serpent hatchlings emerge rapidly from a cracked egg. Their mouths open in hisses, flooding the area with a terrifying swarm that grows faster than expected. The young man urges everyone to buy as much time as possible, determined to find the serpent's weakness, while a confident warrior with a scarred face agrees to trust him. A fierce wolf-like fighter crouches, ready to charge, while another warrior prepares to leap forward. The group bursts into action across the shattered battlefield, their spirits high as they race toward the monstrous threat. The wolf-like fighter challenges an older dwarf, who grins back, refusing to be outdone by the younger warrior. Countless serpents flood the ruins, their hissing mouths wide open as they surge forward in overwhelming numbers, filling the space with a terrifying presence. The wolf-like fighter lunges at a serpent, narrowly dodging its snapping jaws, while the dwarf swings his axe with precision, cleaving through the serpents as the scarred warrior watches intently, ready to strike again. A muscular fighter strikes down serpent heads with powerful blows while another warrior swings a large weapon, cutting through the serpents' necks. A third figure, cloaked and determined, lunges at the snakes with a sword. Nearby, a young woman closes her eyes, calling upon the earth to lend her power. Numerous serpents rear up, surrounding the caster, who stands firm as the group watches in awe and fear. One member screams in panic, admitting she cannot defeat snakes like these, while the witch-like figure steadies herself amidst the chaos. The cloaked woman, clutching her staff, faces the advancing serpents and admits she only came to take the exam, shocked by the unexpected danger. A companion shouts a warning as the serpents close in, and the woman raises her staff, preparing to defend herself. Suddenly, the serpents vanish in a flash, leaving the group stunned. The woman and her allies express disbelief, realizing the staff itself defeated the snakes. A female warrior asks for guidance, and the cloaked figure instructs 2 others to handle the approaching serpents while urging a young man to stay close. A determined young man asks an archer named Firen to try shooting an arrow at the giant snake, prompting her to confidently accept the challenge and prepare her bow. She swiftly draws an arrow and releases it toward the serpent. The arrow strikes the snake but fails to phase it, leaving the group worried as the archer admits that arrows won't work against the creature's barrier. The young man recalls seeing a similar barrier earlier and realizes they must find a way to overcome it. The young woman, tense and sweating, acknowledges the endless wave of serpents they face, frustrated by how their attacks have no lasting effect. The massive snake looms over the battlefield as the group braces for the ongoing fight. The young man urgently warns Lily for charging too deeply into danger, while instructing Firen to protect a boy named Myro. Firen reassures Myro she will keep him safe, and the young man laments his own helplessness, feeling like a burden to his comrades as the giant snake opens its mouth, ready to strike again. A determined young woman shouts in frustration at the relentless threat, while a boy nearby anxiously asks about the whereabouts of Big Sis. Surrounded by numerous baby serpents, she braces herself, sweat dripping down her face, knowing she must act. The boy calls out urgently to Big Sis as he watches the serpents, noticing strange threads of magic power connecting the baby snakes to the giant serpent. He wonders if the massive snake is controlling the hatchlings with magic. The boy clenches his fist, recalling a past moment, and resolves that absorbing the giant snake's magic power might change the tide. A young woman nearby expresses concern that she can't hear the others, while the boy explains that Myro is absorbing Lily's magic power, and she insists he proceed without her. The young woman reflects on her dependence on Big Sis and her desire not to be a burden, while the boy sprints forward with determination, shouting his resolve to do what he can as Big Sis watches him from behind, ready to support. Firen calls out in shock as the young man, Myro, prepares to touch a magical thread connecting the baby serpents, determined to absorb the magic power despite uncertainty. He steels himself, vowing to fight alongside everyone. Baby serpents hiss fiercely, rushing toward Big Sis, who shouts Myro's name in alarm as he runs toward her. The ground erupts violently beneath him, and he grimaces in pain as debris flies around. A giant serpent opens its mouth wide, ready to strike the seated Myro, who winces from the impact. The snake lunges at him, but he urgently commands the magic thread to make it in time. A glowing orb of magic bursts from Myro's chest, shocking a nearby figure as dark energy violently erupts outward, signaling a powerful and unexpected transformation. The giant serpent's scaly skin begins to crumble and fall away, revealing a young man standing calmly amidst the debris. A woman watches in shock, calling out his name as the snake's form disintegrates. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupts around the young man, sending debris flying in all directions. The battlefield is engulfed in a swirling vortex of dark energy, twisting and expanding with immense force. The giant serpent and its offspring coil near a ruined gate, while the chaotic energy spirals outward, consuming the area. The vortex intensifies, drawing in rubble and dust as it spins like a miniature galaxy within the ruined arena. The massive serpents loom over the swirling darkness, their presence ominous and threatening. The giant serpent's head cracks open, its mouth wide in a terrifying roar as fragments of its barrier shatter. The snake's scales break apart violently, signaling a dramatic change as the creature prepares to strike once more. The giant serpent's scales shatter into fragments, leaving the young man and a young woman standing amidst the rubble, both shocked and speechless as they try to comprehend the sudden change. Nearby, a group of onlookers marvels at the scene, noting how the massive snake has shrunk dramatically, now coiled small on the ground surrounded by countless baby serpents. An elderly man reflects in awe on the existence of someone capable of absorbing the giant snake's magic power, while the young man collapses to the ground, his body racked with dark energy as a young woman rushes to his side, calling his name in concern. The group anxiously gathers around the fallen youth, urging him to pull himself together, while he quietly apologizes for wanting to fight but fearing he would only be a burden, leaving the others worried about the reckless consequences of absorbing the evil dragon's magic power. The young man asks Myro if he can still move, reassuring him that thanks to his efforts, the weakness of their enemy has been discovered. Myro, still seated on the ground, confirms he can move, while a young woman looks on with surprise, questioning the meaning of this weakness. The young man smiles confidently as he prepares to explain the plan to defeat the evil dragon. Inside a waiting room filled with exhausted and anxious soldiers, one man points urgently toward the arena, alarmed by the ongoing chaos. Another soldier, distressed and clutching his head, fears being eaten by snakes, while a third angrily demands to know why the barrier hasn't broken and what the people outside are doing. The tension and desperation among the gathered fighters are palpable. Observers at the arena notice the monster shrinking dramatically, sparking confusion and curiosity about the young man's intentions. The young man explains that since Myro absorbed the magic power, the appraisal of the enemy worked, revealing vital information. A magical display shows the evil dragon's status, mana, and notes that the protection of the evil god has vanished, exposing 6 small white scales as its vital points. A detailed diagram highlights the 6 vital points on the evil dragon's body, including the tip of the tail, left and right torso, back, and near the mouth, all marked by small white scales. The young man instructs everyone to split up and, on his signal, destroy those scales. He spreads his remaining magic power thinly over a wide area, appraising only the positions of the scales while preparing the group for coordinated attack. Big Sis and Myro take cover behind large rocks as they prepare to attack, their magic threads glowing faintly. The giant serpent coils nearby, its many baby snakes noticeably fewer in number. Myro focuses intently, noting that everyone is in position and the baby snakes have decreased considerably. The serpent's heads hiss menacingly, ready to strike. The young man confronts the serpent boldly, warning it that it must eat them to pass. The serpent snarls, refusing to let him go. He dashes forward with agility, targeting the most dangerous vital point near the serpent's mouth. He braces himself as the serpent's fangs, known to carry deadly poison, snap close. The young man assesses the battlefield, realizing this time his attack must not fail like before. Surrounded by countless serpent eggs, he knows he absolutely must destroy the vital point to turn the tide. He prepares to strike with determination, the massive serpent looming behind him. Spotting the small white scale marking the vital point, he sprints forward with a knife in hand. The serpent lunges at him with jaws wide open, but he is resolute, certain he will succeed this time. The young man leaps forward with fierce determination, shouting that he will destroy the vital point for sure. His clenched fist and intense gaze show his unwavering resolve as he charges at the serpent. He braces himself against the serpent's massive body, pushing with all his strength, but his face reveals the struggle as he begins to lose consciousness, sweat dripping down his face and his arm turning skeletal. Summoning his last reserves of strength, he plunges his knife deep into the serpent's vulnerable scale, narrowly avoiding the creature's snapping jaws as its eye watches the attack with a menacing glare. With a desperate roar, the young man commands the moment to strike now. His voice filled with urgency and raw emotion as he drives his attack home against the serpent's vital point. The young man commands everyone to act immediately as the giant serpent looms before them. Big Sis, Myro, and two others spring into motion. Their faces set with determination, he lies back, preparing to reveal the strategy to defeat the evil dragon. He explains that 6 small white scales on the dragon's body are its vital points, instructing the group to split up and destroy them all at once. One member notes they are 1 person short for the 6 targets, but the young man remains confident. The focus shifts to Big Sis, who resolves to entrust the first 2 shots to fire in. Aiming carefully at the dragon's back and behind its neck, she promises not to miss, her expression fierce and focused as the others ready their weapons. The arrow strikes true, shattering one of the white scales with a burst of energy. Big Sis draws her bowstring back, preparing to fire another precise shot as the battle intensifies. Big Sis shouts urgently for the arrow to hit the target as the young man lies exhausted on the ground, bloodied and struggling to move. The arrow strikes one of the serpent's vital scales, shattering it with a powerful impact, causing the serpent's head to reel back unsteadily. The young man gasps in shock, questioning if they succeeded, while another calls out to Myro, who is suddenly grabbed by the serpent's massive tail, causing him to cry out in pain. An enormous explosion erupts, throwing debris and dust into the air, as the woman watches in disbelief, whispering Myro's name, while a voice praises the progress made so far. An older man stands beside a young boy sitting on the ground beneath the massive body of a defeated serpent, asking if he is hurt. The boy politely declines, but suddenly the old man cries out in pain as the serpent's heavy body shifts, crushing his back. The young man surveys the battlefield, noticing glowing symbols representing his comrades and the defeated evil dragon with its health at 0. Relieved, he expresses gratitude that everyone is safe, but his attention is drawn to a sudden movement among the countless serpent eggs scattered around. A small creature resembling a grotesque heart with legs bursts from one of the serpent eggs, its mouth wide open in a terrifying roar as it emerges into the ruined landscape. The young man recognizes the creature as the evil god's heart, marked with an S rank, and realizes the battle is far from over, struggling to rise. He knows that if the heart escapes, the fight will continue, and he braces himself for what comes next. The young man lies motionless on the cracked ground, his body refusing to respond despite his desperate will. A voice calls out to him anxiously, but he can only think of someone, that thing. As his mind struggles to move, nearby, 2 children stand silently beside a fallen figure, their thoughts echoing the plea for someone to help. A single boot presses down firmly on the cracked earth, signaling the approach of a new presence. Bloodied and bruised, the young man utters the name Lily as his gaze fixes on a figure dashing swiftly toward him. The young woman's determined expression reveals her understanding that the moving entity in his sight must be a crucial part that emerged from the evil dragon. Sweat beads on her face as she braces herself for what is to come. With fierce resolve, the young woman leaps into the air, gripping her staff tightly as she vows not to let the creature escape. The grotesque heart-like monster scurries ahead, its wide mouth open in a manic grin, oblivious to the impending strike. A shout warns to get down just as the young woman prepares to bring her weapon down with full force. The staff crashes down mercilessly onto the creature, shattering its grotesque form with a powerful blow. The monster's wide-open mouth and shocked expression freeze in place as the attack lands, sending debris flying and marking a critical moment in the battle. The young woman watches as the shattered remains of the grotesque heart-like creature lie still on the cracked ground, smoke rising from the impact crater nearby. The monstrous form dissolves into scattered black fragments, its tongue lolling lifelessly. Two figures exchange surprised glances, realizing the serpents are vanishing before their eyes. In the distance, a group of warriors stands confidently amid the ruins, one declaring their victory with a relieved smile. Observers from above peer down at the devastated arena, voices filled with disbelief and awe at the sight before them. The massive pile of serpent corpses and debris confirms the impossible. The monstrous serpent has been defeated. The crowd's murmurs swell as they witness the aftermath of the fierce battle, the once threatening presence now reduced to ruin. An elderly mage, his expression a mix of irritation and weariness, scolds a younger man for calling him back from his mission, lamenting the lack of respect from the youth. The younger man bows apologetically, explaining the urgency of the situation. Nearby, a stern captain arrives, greeted with relief by the mage, who requests his help to dispel a powerful barrier that has been troubling them. Suddenly, a dark, swirling energy bursts forth from the fortress walls as the barrier begins to crack and break apart. The gathered group watches in shock and alarm, voices rising in confusion and concern. The mage grips his staff tightly, eyes wide as the protective magic falters, signaling a new threat looming on the horizon. A crowd of relieved people gathers outside, celebrating their escape and safety. A young man explains that during the exam, a massive snake monster appeared, laying countless eggs that quickly hatched, filling the venue with snakes. An armored man urgently questions what happened inside, while an elderly mage and the young man recount how a barrier trapped them, making them fear death. The armored man reacts with shock upon hearing the monster was defeated. The young man believes the fighters are still inside, but the armored man orders others to check on the injured and urges the young man to leave. The elder mage watches thoughtfully, recalling the barrier and magic power from 50 years ago. The mage reflects on the unknown entity, a living magical tool possessing evil magic capable of devouring human blood and summoning monsters, whose tremendous power destroyed many countries. The crowd looks on at the smoking ruins, stunned by the devastation. Among the gathered survivors, the mage contemplates the existence of someone capable of defeating such a monster. The young man, battered but smiling faintly, stands with a young woman by his side. The mage walks away alone, pondering that perhaps this world is not so bad after all, leaving the question of who these heroes truly are lingering in the air. 2 weeks later, on re-examination day, exhausted soldiers collapse to the ground one after another, the 10th person falling amid the chaos. 2 men watch in disbelief as the battlefield fills with fallen warriors, shocked by the relentless toll. A determined young woman with a sword challenges her opponents to come at her, her confidence unshaken despite the fierce competition. Nearby, archers celebrate their perfect bullseyes, leaving others stunned by their precision and skill. A confident woman with glasses flashes a peace sign, praising Firen's incredible marksmanship. Onlookers recognize the group as the Snake Slayer hero's subordinates, not the hero himself, while a bearded man watches thoughtfully from a window. Inside a quiet room, a young man reflects that the subordinates also played a crucial role in defeating the evil dragon. Another man questions why Major Rudolph, who was manipulated by an enemy spy, has summoned him, suggesting a meeting to reflect on their shared failures. A young man smiles confidently, crediting Major Rullabale's guidance for his progress. An older man with a scarred face remarks on the newcomer's boldness. The young man presents a thick stack of documents, explaining he forcibly retrieved the final report before it reached the Queen. The older man acknowledges the effort, noting how hard the young man pushed himself and promises to read the report carefully. The older man reflects that their deception has been erased. As expected, the young man solemnly agrees, stating the country wants to present the situation as a success. A new hero who met expectations by eliminating the giant snake. Narration reveals the military was shaken, many upper ranks dismissed, and enemies infiltrated high levels, alongside a major incident at a state-run training school. This hero is portrayed as a clear beacon of hope to ease public anxiety. The older man contemplates the nation's prosperity, calling the outcome the best possible when judged solely by results. The young man admits he can only be promoted to major on his own merit and acknowledges his limitations. He believes he has merely struck at the vulnerable parts of those confident in overthrowing the nation. The older man observes that the young man has cornered those with more power above him. The young man sits alone in a library, admitting he let his guard down, allowing the country to be reborn as a better place. He confirms receiving a promotion offer for a vacant upper-rank position and is considering accepting it. He admits the promotion isn't based on recognized ability but intends to see the top leadership with his own eyes before deciding. An older man with long hair and a beard smiles confidently, telling the younger man that new opportunities arise when his position changes. The younger man, calm but thoughtful, admits the senior isn't enthusiastic about this. The elder explains he's not just focused on his own strength but wants to nurture the next generation. The younger man, surprised, asks about this next generation, and the elder suggests it would be good to raise interesting people. The young man cheerfully praises everyone's hard work and suggests they celebrate with a barbecue since they have the chance. The group reacts with excitement and surprise, eagerly agreeing. The older man declares he'll join too, prompting a younger man to exclaim disbelief as they all prepare to leave together happily. The scene shifts to a bustling cityscape labeled as the Kingdom of Dramd about a month after Alto defected. A group of uniformed men hurriedly carry crates, but a stern officer angrily demands to know why they haven't finished their work again. A sweating worker stammers an excuse, but the officer cuts him off, showing no patience for excuses. The officer's frustration deepens as he clenches his teeth, lamenting how the work is never finished due to daily slacking. The crates pile up outside a large building, overwhelming the workers. The officer and the worker struggle to appraise the volume, with the officer declaring there will be no salary this month as punishment for the delays. A young man crashes backward into a pile of crates and scattered stones, startled by a furious older woman who angrily warns him not to touch her due to his commoner status. Her glare sharpens as she dismisses any excuses and commands that food be brought to him immediately so he can resume work without delay. The woman clenches her fist in frustration, questioning why she must suffer over a commoner's troubles, blaming the useless commoner entirely. Meanwhile, a knight urgently reports to her, announcing he has a report to deliver. The woman, now calmer but still stern, is informed by the knight that they have located Appraiser Alto, the former appraiser who fled from under her command. The knight orders that Alto be brought immediately, warning that failure to do so will cost them their heads. A subordinate nervously tries to explain but is cut off. The knight solemnly reveals that Alto has been given the rank of warrant officer in the Empire. The older woman, surprised and confused, taps the knight's helmet in disbelief, her expression turning blank as she processes the unexpected news. The armored man questions why a commoner would leave the glorious kingdom to join the Empire, emphasizing that a warrant officer is an honorable rank reserved for nobles of proper lineage born to baronet families. The older woman, Appraiser Alto, is left dizzy and confused, unable to comprehend why such a rank would be given to a commoner. Alto urgently demands a precise report on where the commoner was found, and the armored man confirms it was in Karasorum, the Empire's capital. He presents a report stating the man they seek closely resembles the Snake Slayer hero, prompting Alto to eagerly ask to see the documents. He angrily slams a document onto the ground, calling the subject scum and recalling the man as a piece of trash. His frustration is palpable as he stomps on the papers, his face contorted with anger and disdain. He contemplates how a mere commoner could cross the border without orders from another noble. Suddenly realizing the involvement of another noble, the armored man declares this a challenge, suspecting harassment from jealous rivals, while the guards nervously acknowledge the seriousness of the situation. The armored man questions if the scum could have risen in the Empire's military alone. Dismissing the idea as impossible, the older woman suspects a noble's scheme to abduct the commoner and make him stand out. Feeling mocked by the situation, both stand near a wagon in a courtyard, the armored man silent as the woman angrily demands if Eliza can't even manage a single commoner. The older woman reflects that unlike her, others have time to enjoy watching her reaction. The armored man praises her sharp deduction, while two nobles, one holding a fan, smugly admit they abducted the commoner and left him in the Empire, daring her to retrieve him. The woman identifies the likely culprit as Harmel and Maribom's second son, somewhere nearby. A grand noble council chamber is shown, foreshadowing the next meeting where laughter will be directed at the situation. The nobles express surprise that the commoner has already been retrieved, while the armored man laughs darkly, anticipating the shock their news will cause. The older woman commands gathering skilled infiltrators to retrieve the commoner, insisting on killing him if necessary and emphasizing complete secrecy. She watches from a window as the armored man acknowledges the order, her expression resolute and determined. 1 month after defeating the evil dragon, a grand castle stands tall under a bright sky as preparations begin for a promotion announcement ceremony. An older man with glasses addresses a large assembly, calling officer candidate Alto to step forward among a crowd of uniformed candidates seated in rows. The young man, clearly Alto, responds with a determined yes. As the recognition of defeating the evil dragon is acknowledged, around him various individuals, including a light-haired woman with glasses and another young woman, watch with anticipation, while a group of dignitaries and soldiers stand solemnly. Inside a vast, ornate hall, the young man prepares to receive words directly from the queen, whose calm and commanding presence fills the room. He silently urges himself to stay composed, aware that she holds the power to end his life instantly. Despite warnings from those around him not to appraise the queen, the young man is driven by curiosity. He reflects on the impossibility of such an act, sweat beading on his face, as the queen's elegant figure moves gracefully, her hand delicately adjusting her hair, signaling the tense and pivotal moment about to unfold. A close, intimate whisper reassures the young man that he need not be so nervous and that she won't harm him. His eyes widen in shock, realizing the queen has spoken directly to him, and he fears execution for any sign of disrespect. Yet, beneath the tension, he feels honored by her attention. The queen smiles warmly, asking if she is scarier than the snake from the report. Admitting she once thought herself an ordinary woman but now sees she might be more intimidating, the young man nervously denies it, while internally wondering if she's trying to ease his tension as she gracefully sips tea. Standing in a grand hallway, the queen formally announces to the young man that she, Supple Testarat, the 24th queen, honors his achievements by granting him the rank of warrant officer. Suddenly, her expression shifts to a fierce shout, declaring the rank is granted for one generation only, emphasizing the weight of the honor and its limitations. Inside a vast, ornate hall filled with spectators, the queen proclaims the young man will receive the surname Snelliana. Stunning the audience and even the dignitaries present, the young man contemplates the unexpected honor, noting it wasn't part of the usual ceremony script. Yet he feels compelled to accept despite the murmurs and noise behind him. The young man humbly accepts the rank of warrant officer, pledging to improve his abilities without shaming the honor bestowed upon him. Applause fills the grand hall as the ceremony continues, and the older man announces the entrance ceremony for the Imperial Military Central Training School, calling the new student representative, Sarah, to step forward. The young man notices Sarah approaching from a distance, his gaze fixed on her as he walks down the stairs. A close-up reveals a crystal pendant hanging from his chest, while he exhales quietly, sitting beside a horned young woman who watches him with a gentle smile. Reflecting on the promotion ceremony, the young man admits to feeling nervous despite appearing dignified and cool. He recalls rumors about the queen being a master spearwoman with strategic vision and undefeated strength in both military strategy and single combat. Outside the battlefield, she is admired for her kindness, as a smiling woman congratulates Sarah on entering the school. The young man remembers the old couple who let him ride their cart, praising the queen for the country's prosperity and the facility that raised them, which was her idea. The horned woman affirms the queen's amazing nature, and the young man is identified as the kid who led the marathon on the day the queen selected her assistant, while the older man remarks that Sarah is amazing as well. A young woman named Sarah reflects on her journey, revealing she was always first since her days at the children's facility and expressing gratitude for becoming the new student representative by achieving the top exam score. Nearby, Maruria, ranked second, nervously bites into a snack, while the young man observes her bad mood and wonders if she should be a little happier. Another girl admits she tried using support magic to beat Sarah but failed, while the horned woman notes Maruria was always second place, encouraging the young man that he can surpass Sarah over time. The horned woman's encouraging words linger as the young man watches Lily, ranked 10th, tearfully resolve to do her best. The scene shifts to a peaceful exterior view of the castle, marking the safe conclusion of the entrance ceremony with a hopeful promise to work hard together. A smiling female staff member directs the new students to proceed into a room after receiving their electronic terminals. The young man thanks her politely as she congratulates him on his enrollment. He then examines the sleek, black device in his hand with curiosity, wondering what it is. The young man and several others enter a vast, grand lecture hall filled with rows of seated students. He marvels at the impressive room alongside the horned woman, the light-haired woman with glasses, and another young woman, all sharing the awe of the magnificent space. As they settle in, the young man's gaze catches a mysterious figure among the crowd, hinting at something significant. Several students are introduced by name and rank. Loom at rank 5, Rick at 12, Jay at 8, Ruse, Rufa, Leoria at 4, and Ibra at 3. A smiling young woman excitedly calls out to Maruria, catching the attention of a dark-haired young man who recalls the evil dragon battle. For students sit together, with one teasing another for sleeping during the ceremony, two boast about muscle strength while another complains of hunger. Their ranks are revealed. Galba, 16 years old at rank 610. Karina, 15 at 68. Rulist, 15 at 115. And Ralph, 15 at 205. A young woman explains something to 3 attentive students holding devices, who ask how to use them. Their ranks and ages are shown. Arara, 15 at 581. Shala, 15 at 331. Kelvin, 15 at 226. And Galtris, 15 at 54. A cheerful girl calls out to Lily, prompting a surprised reaction. The two embrace warmly, congratulating each other on passing. Nearby, some students comment on the girls' appearances, debating which one is cuter, while a hand slams down on a desk, signaling strong emotion. A young woman with braided hair looks on quietly as a muscular young man angrily calls out to Maruria, accusing her of tying him up during the re-exam and causing him to barely pass. A flashback shows her skillfully restraining him with ropes. Nearby, a calm man urges everyone to take their seats, while another questions if the angry youth was even present during the exam. The young man is startled to see an older, scarred figure with long hair, who greets him warmly as Major Rullabale. Though the youth insists he is no longer a major, the older man clears his throat to command attention, then stands before the gathered students, who watch him with mixed expressions of curiosity and respect. Rullabale introduces himself as their instructor or master, promising to look after them all. He explains that information about lectures, training, and missions will be accessible through the electronic terminals distributed earlier, where their salaries will also be deposited. He dismisses the group, signaling the start of their new phase. The young man acknowledges the order, and the instructor commands the group to follow him, calling it a special menu. As the students prepare to move, one asks about the fate of a kid wearing a pointed hat, while another cheerfully announces they are moving as well, holding their terminals ready. A young man and 2 others discuss the absence of someone from the re-exam, speculating they might have given up out of fear. An older warrior with a helmet questions the luxury of worrying about others, reminding that they fought together as comrades. The young man holding a smartphone declares their battle is far from over, signaling a new beginning, while another looks on with curiosity. The scarred young man confidently vows to serve under the Snake Slayer hero, explaining that good grades during training will increase chances of preferred assignments. His companion asks what he plans to do, surprised by his serious resolve. The scene shifts to a distant figure standing amid ruins, watched by a muscular man. The young man with light hair tells the scarred youth that everyone except him intends to follow the instructor, prompting a shocked reaction. The focus then moves to a dimly lit laboratory filled with strange equipment and large tanks containing serpent-like creatures, hinting at secretive experiments. Inside the lab, a young woman named Sarah smiles warmly as she holds a test tube, surrounded by various scientific instruments and preserved specimens. An elderly man with a cane enters the room, calling her name, suggesting an important encounter about to unfold. An elderly man with a long braided beard asks a young woman for help, prompting her to respond eagerly that she'll be right there. The scene shifts to a grand hallway with tall arches, leading to a large ornate door where a group of students, including a tall man with long hair and others of varying heights, approach as someone calls out to them from inside. The young man with spiky black hair and pointed ears addresses the older figure, asking why he is here. The older man, smiling confidently, reveals that Rudolph sent him. Behind him, shadowy figures with glowing eyes and star insignias appear, as he declares that from now on, he will teach the young man to become a true appraiser. The bustling appraisal room is filled with shelves of various items as workers call out completed tasks and request the next batch, urging each other to hurry so they can finish and go home. A focused appraiser wearing round glasses handles a jewel, while others shout prices and ranks for the items being processed. A young man and a horned woman observe the appraisal process, noting that appraisers are present even at the training school, evaluating items brought back from missions. An older man explains that excellent appraisers are assigned here, emphasizing their skill, while the young man reflects on the variety of appraisers, including those in the military and guild. Different appraisers announce the ranks and prices of items with serious expressions, ranging from D to a rank, with one excitedly declaring a high price for an A-rank item. A young woman calmly calls for the next item, maintaining the steady flow of the appraisal process. The older man praises the speed and efficiency of these appraisers compared to those in the guild, prompting a mix of reactions from the observing group. He then asks the young man how long he would take to appraise an item, who prepares to respond as the scene focuses on their attentive faces. A young man concentrates deeply, gathering magic power into a glowing orb at his chest, intending to spread the energy throughout the entire room. Inside a bustling workshop filled with various workers and appraisers, the command to release is given, sending magical signals radiating outward in waves. An older man laughs heartily, impressed that the young man has finished appraising a vast collection of intricate armor and weapons in record time. The room is filled with shelves and displays of numerous items, as others continue their work. The older man expresses disbelief that everything has already been appraised, but acknowledges the young man's honesty. The young man pledges to appraise the names of the items as well, while a shadowy figure requests the appraisal results, and the group listens attentively. Various items are appraised with their ranks and prices displayed. Medicinal herbs at D rank for 380 yen each, a crowned bream's crown at a rank for 11, 200 yen, and a small magic stone at B rank for 4, 980 yen, totaling 17, 320 yen. The older man marvels at the value, calling it beyond imagination. The young man explains that the time-consuming part is pre-processing and sorting, noting all 13, 653 items were already pre-processed. The young woman asks what pre-processing means. The young man demonstrates that minerals must have surrounding rock removed before appraisal. As magic power must pass through the item, he explains that monster items should be appraised before dismantling, as values change after. A list is shown with ranks and prices. He adds that after appraisal, the name, rank, price, and quantity are recorded during sorting, completing the process. The young woman recalls Fire and Sand helping her with this in the military forest. Memories of working and recording items flash through the young man's mind. He notes that here only pre-processed items are present, and different people handle appraisal, sorting, and recording. Several women and men are shown performing these tasks, emphasizing the division of labor. The young man reflects that dividing the work reduces individual burden and increases efficiency. Calling it typical of the empire, he notes that only rank and price were appraised, keeping magic consumption low, allowing him to finish quickly. A woman expresses amazement that over 20 people usually handle appraisal work here, yet he did it alone. She insists his appraisal speed is beyond abnormal, while the young man looks surprised by her reaction. The horned woman and a bespectacled appraiser express their growing awe and slight fear of the young man. Admitting they've grown accustomed to his incredible skills, he quietly reflects that if these appraisers are the true experts, his own ability might not even qualify as real appraisal. The young man enjoys a moment of calm, noting that despite the intense work, drinks and snacks are readily available, with some even working while snacking. Overwhelmed by admiration, tears stream down his face as he wishes he had been born an imperial appraiser. Amidst playful teasing from others, the older man places a comforting hand on the young man's shoulder, acknowledging the hardships he has endured and encouraging him not to worry. The young man gratefully accepts the support and is warmly invited to visit the older man's room anytime he needs help. The group of appraisers and trainees descend a staircase together, moving forward as a cohesive unit. Their expressions a mix of determination and anticipation for what lies ahead. A group descends a staircase, led by a man with a beard and long hair, who announces he has been waiting for the young man. The older man apologizes for the intrusion, but the young man with glasses warmly welcomes him, offering any assistance needed. The young man explains that Major Rudolph requested trainees be allowed to observe, expressing surprise that the Snake Slayer hero has come. He introduces himself as first-class appraiser Clobadarin and shakes hands with a black-haired youth named Alto, who asks about the appraisal progress. The older man inquires how it is going. Kloba confidently reports the appraisal is proceeding smoothly, showing a chart with a perfect goal achievement rate and top school ranking for 3 years. He notes the daily increase in items sent for appraisal. While the older man questions if this is too much, Kloba expresses his hope for a military assignment, and a young woman asks what a first-class appraiser is. The older man praises Major Rollebal's stoicism, while Kloba admits he cannot match him. The young man explains that the stars on the uniform indicate rank, which is a qualification earned by passing a national exam. He describes the appraisal ranks from 10th grade to 1st grade, then from 1st Dan to 5th Dan, followed by semi-master, master, grandmaster, semi-expert, and expert. The black-haired youth listens attentively, understanding that appraisal abilities are ranked through exams. The older man and the bespectacled appraiser silently observe the items the young man has just finished appraising, including a large ore and a fish head. The young man explains these are the same items he reported to Instructor Rollebale earlier, noting the ore is B rank priced at 4, 980 yen and the fish head is a rank with its price to follow. The older man quietly realizes the rank and price match those of the boy. The young man questions if the ore and fish head refer to the magic stone and crowned bream's crown. Confirming his understanding, the bespectacled appraiser suddenly asks if he has a question. Surprising the young man, who nervously denies it, worried his expression gave him away. The bespectacled man steps forward, confidently stating that the young man can appraise. Nearby, a group of young women and a boy watch the exchange with wide eyes and nervous expressions. The bespectacled appraiser smiles warmly and proposes a competition to see the hero's skills. Inviting the young man to compete with him, the young man listens intently, considering the challenge. A young man with dark hair is invited to compete by a cheerful girl with braided hair. While a group of 4 onlookers watch silently, he modestly accepts the challenge, unsure if he can match his opponent but eager to try. Inside a cluttered appraisal room, the young man explains his confusion about his appraisal abilities and how he sought out Major Rudolph to witness a true appraiser. The The bespectacled man acknowledges the wisdom in this, but the young man requests a private conversation before discussing the competition rules. The bespectacled man, now alone with the young man, asks if he wants to be let win, which the young man denies. The older man invites him to ask his question, and the young man seriously inquires if appraisal magic can be used on people. The bespectacled man reveals that appraisal magic cannot affect living beings like people or monsters, explaining that if it could, it would be more like divination or prophecy magic. As he demonstrates, swirling magical energy envelopes the young man, who apologizes and excuses himself briefly. The bespectacled young man stares wide-eyed, sweat dripping down his face, overwhelmed by a swirling mass of countless eyes and dark tendrils that loom before him. He wonders if the overwhelming force is the black-haired youth's magic power, noting that some people don't sense it at all, while others feel it differently. He's never seen it so clearly. The swirling mass seems to peer through him, as if nothing can be hidden, and a voice identifies the young man as Kloba Darren, 20 years old. Inside a cluttered room filled with shelves of jars and books, the black-haired youth praises Kloba's achievements, confirming his rapid rise through training and high appraisal aptitude. Matching what was reported to Instructor Rollerbale, a glowing emblem with Kloba's silhouette and appraisal rank appears as the youth acknowledges his high aptitude. The black-haired youth explains that Kloba's appraisal ability has been sharpened through daily effort and reveals his unique talent. The ability to appraise people. Kloba, stunned, questions how the youth knows so much about his past and hesitantly repeats the phrase, trying to grasp the meaning of appraising people. A loud crash startles a group of students, prompting a surprised reaction. A tall man with a beard reassures a young woman that the boy must have his reasons. While two other girls speculate if Alto informed him about the appraisal, the young woman quietly asks Alto-sama who the boy really is. The black-haired youth confidently reveals he has appraised every item in the room, astonishing the man beside him who exclaims there are over 10,000 items here. The youth corrects the count to precisely 13,652 items, while the bespectacled young man nervously taps his phone, overwhelmed by the scale. The youth explains that besides people, he can appraise monsters and objects, shocking the bespectacled man who wonders if he can even appraise the names of things. The black-haired youth clarifies the items previously appraised were actually called Crown Bream's Crown and Magic Stone. The bespectacled man reflects on how this is the second time he has been touched by this magic power, realizing if the youth can appraise over 10,000 things instantly, appraisers might lose their jobs. The bespectacled man contemplates that the youth probably cannot handle all appraisal requests in the Empire, so appraisers won't become unnecessary, but if that happens, it would threaten their survival. He questions why the higher-ups aren't employing the youth as an appraiser, pondering if there is another reason behind it. The black-haired youth explains that the true reason for the visit is beyond normal appraisal abilities, revealing he was sent to understand what real appraisers are like. The bespectacled young man anxiously asks if it's okay to hear this, but the youth confirms it's military classified information. Shocked, the bespectacled man questions why such important details were shared, while the youth calmly points out that if his ability became widespread, appraisers would be at risk since he can see through everything. The youth reassures the bespectacled man not to worry, stating that Major Rudolph does not plan to keep him in the military as an appraiser. He firmly declares he never wants to be an appraiser again. The bespectacled man, surprised, adjusts his glasses and asks if this is really true. The youth then shifts the conversation back to the competition, asking what the bespectacled man wants to do next. A group gathers as an instructor apologizes for the delay and explains that after hearing the youth's story, it's clear his ability is an appraisal. He invites the youth to see a professional workplace before leaving. Though they cannot compete, Major Rudolph remarks that the youth has plans after this, so timing would have been difficult anyway. Nearby, a young woman and another woman express disappointment at missing the chance to see the youth's skills. The bespectacled man thanks Instructor Rudolph for the support while the youth and the group prepare to leave the appraisal room. The visit is declared classified information about the hero, and everyone is forbidden from speaking about it. The youth reflects on the appraisal process, noting that even fast appraisers take 2 minutes per item and cannot see all details at once. He explains that while identical items can be appraised simultaneously, different or deteriorated items require individual attention. He asks his subordinates about the real appraisers, and the scene shifts to a trainee named Lily, with Major Rudolph and a young girl checking if she is okay. A young woman nervously admits she kept comparing everyone to Alto-sama, while another woman agrees, saying she prefers Alto-kun as her boss. A black-haired youth enthusiastically declares he now truly understands how amazing Alto-san is. Echoing the others' sentiments, the bearded Major Rollerbale smiles warmly, affirming they all shared the same impression. The youth confirms his understanding of the appraisers at the training school. The youth asks what he should do from now on, and the major advises him to refrain from using his appraisal ability as much as possible for now. The youth worries this will cause problems at the training school and questions if he is useless without appraisal. The major sternly insists that he must refrain, emphasizing it is not an all-or-nothing choice. He explains the military's opinion, noting two aspects on which the youth is being evaluated. The youth is told that until now, he has only appraised what was given and worked through numbers, but the military does not want such a showy method. The major grabs the youth's shoulder, explaining that his high ability to discover potential and raise subordinates, along with seeing through the giant snake's weakness, means he has changed roles. He has moved from appraising on command to giving commands to subordinates. The youth listens intently, surprised by the shift in his position and responsibilities. The youth stands before four women, who encourage him to think about how he can grow to benefit his subordinates. They remind him that his subordinates will decide if he is needed. Bowing respectfully, he thanks them and promises to consider their advice seriously as he takes a determined step forward. Tears well up in the young man's eyes as he feels overwhelmed. Realizing this is the first time anyone has ever said something so meaningful to him, and he is on the verge of crying again. Standing in a grand hallway, the older man advises the youth that if he reaches a higher position, others will not suspect he used appraisal. He instructs him to deny it if questioned and simply say he heard it from him, assuring this will help. The youth responds with a determined and loud affirmation. The older man warns that when the youth does use appraisal, he must ensure his magic power remains undetected, as a dark, crackling energy surrounds the instructor, causing the youth and a companion to look on in shock and fear. The youth senses an oppressive aura emanating from the instructor, recognizing it as his magic power. While standing before a massive, intimidating armored creature emerging from the water, its presence dwarfing the two men. The youth stands before the older man with long hair and a beard, who faces a large window with his hands behind his back. Three young women nearby turn toward the youth, calling his name with concern and curiosity. The older man notes that only the youth and a trainee named Myro reacted to the sensation of magic power directed at them. Explaining that those sensitive or trained to detect magic will notice it, the youth acknowledges he must hold back his appraisal ability to avoid detection. Memories of harsh voices urging relentless appraisal flood the youth's mind, reminding him of the pressure to work faster and do more, even as he resolves to judge situations carefully and heed warnings from Lily. The older man confirms the youth can indeed feel magic power directed at him and advises patience until he can no longer detect it. The youth is surprised to learn he can hide his magic power and resolves to train it so he can appraise freely without others noticing. The young man eagerly pleads to be taught, but the older officer with a scarred face and long hair insists they will do that another time. He explains that from now on, the young man must meet someone important and that only Warrant Officer Alto will accompany him. The young man asks if their presence will cause problems, and the older man firmly tells him to either wait or return, emphasizing the need to gain appropriate strength moving forward. The older officer challenges the young man to either defeat him or wait, causing the young man to react with frustration. Nearby, a young woman with braided hair and two others sulk, deciding to wait where they are. The young woman comments on their sulking, while the others express their displeasure by turning away. Suddenly, the young man is grabbed and hurried away by the older officer, who warns of potential danger, leaving the young man startled and questioning where he is being taken. Walking down a corridor, the older officer advises the young man not to fear being seen through and to use appraisal on the two people he will meet. He cautions that if things go badly, the young man should prioritize his own survival. Approaching a door, the older man instructs the young man that once inside, he must neither speak to nor answer questions from those they meet, emphasizing the seriousness of the encounter. The young man nervously agrees to these strict conditions. Entering a lavish room, the older officer apologizes for the delay. Explaining things got busy, two young men in uniform greet them warmly, expressing gratitude for the instructor's arrival. The young man realizes these two are defectors like himself and wonders if they understand why they were summoned. The older officer stands behind him, preparing for the important meeting ahead. A young man named Bastimal nervously offers reassurance, explaining they come from the kingdom and encouraging questions. His profile reveals he fled due to overwork and fear of death, valued for his physique as a noble's exclusive soldier. A woman named Badora, skilled in first-level fire magic but unable to endure forced labor, looks surprised and asks if she offended anyone. The older officer accuses them of possibly being spies from the kingdom, but quickly relents after sensing their magic power was only released without harm, allowing everyone to relax. The woman acknowledges the test with magic and killing intent, marveling at the country's ability to project magic power. The older officer announces their suspicions are cleared and tells them they can speak freely. The young man is startled when the woman asks if he is Alto Snelliana, the famed snake slayer hero. He confirms his identity and explains he was born in the kingdom but defected to the empire. Both the young man and woman exchange surprised looks. The young man reveals he was from Yabil under Amaliza, prompting astonishment from the others who recognized the place. Both the man and woman excitedly call him the commoner's hope, overwhelmed to meet the real person. The young man admits he came because he admired the hero, blushing as he processes the unexpected admiration. In a grand room, a group discusses a rumor spreading among the kingdom's commoners about a noble in Yabil troubled by a commoner appraiser's escape. One man confirms the rumor continues, saying the commoner lives happily in the empire. Another explains the nobles tried to suppress the rumor, but it only spread further, and he doubts it can be stopped now. The young man listens, surprised to learn of these events. Reflecting by a window, he realizes that since he defected, only he could have spread such a rumor. He understands that spreading rumors about him would cause defectors to appear, weakening the enemy while strengthening their own military. A strategy reminiscent of Major Bellart. A harsh interrogation scene flashes, showing a man tortured and accused of spreading the rumor, denying involvement despite the accusations. The scene shifts back to the present, where the young man thanks the others for sharing the truth. They express a desire to get along as people in the same situation, agreeing to meet again socially. The older officer with the scarred face announces the lesson is over and invites them to a good drinking spot, smiling warmly. At a lively tavern, the group raises their mugs in a toast. The young man blushes, overwhelmed by the repeated cheers. While one companion teases him for being weak with alcohol, the atmosphere is light-hearted and warm, marking a rare moment of camaraderie and relief. The group reflects on the grueling exam they endured, with one woman asking if Badora is all right after their ordeal. She reveals that Yabil in the kingdom is in dire straits, with many fleeing and towns becoming deserted. The young man listens intently, shocked by the news. He contemplates the economic collapse under Amaliza, where declining population leads to higher taxes, causing the wealthy to relocate and the poor to flee. The woman explains how merchants now face months-long delays due to a backlog of appraisals, and how defectors like Alto and others are called the commoner's hope as the exodus begins. The young man questions whether many appraisers escape together, but the woman doubts it, noting that most have gone their separate ways. She inquires about the others accompanying him and asks why he joined the military. He responds quietly, while the woman gently chides him to wake up as the store is closing. The scarred officer considers the young man's answer, acknowledging the good pay as a reason for joining. He notes that the boy and two others are clean from any wrongdoing. The scene widens to show their peaceful surroundings, with the officer lamenting that Bellart was misled by false information, just as the boy's appraisal results had indicated. An older man explains that their plan to catch spies by having the boy identify them with his appraisal was completely missed, as the spies had already infiltrated the empire. The scarred officer confirms a capable individual was sent to retrieve the boy, but despite secret searches known only to the queen and her subordinates, no sign of the infiltrators has been found. They speculate that the spies either have special abilities or are aided by traitors within the upper ranks. The older man reflects on how they thought they had eliminated the threat during the snake incident, but either overlooked some infiltrators or new ones have appeared. He acknowledges that while recruiting those with abilities regardless of race strengthens national power, it leaves many vulnerabilities to internal threats. The younger man agrees that no ideology is without flaws, but it cannot be helped at this time. Two men discuss the queen's unmatched ability and kindness, noting that while they should support her more, their current efforts are insufficient. They agree they cannot just watch the infiltrators grow stronger and must keep a close eye on the boy's surroundings. The older man insists they have no choice but to monitor the situation carefully, though the younger one hesitates, acknowledging the difficulty. The scarred officer decides to cancel classroom studies and advance practical training, which the younger man agrees might be beneficial. At a cozy tavern, the group enjoys the warm atmosphere, with one commenting on how frequently Major Rullabale visits the place. The older man insists on being called senior like in the old days, while the younger man apologizes for now being an instructor. The scene ends with the tavern exterior at night, as a voice mentions hearing about suspicious movements in the west, though the other has not heard of it.